Hey everyone. Welcome back for the fourth and final part of What If Naruto Was Raised by Kushina? As always, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, especially with all the restrictions YouTube places on my type of content. After this video, feel free to head over there, where you can find about 50 other different stories to enjoy. Also, feel free to send me any messages over there if you have any questions or even if you just want to chat. Link to all of that will be in the description. Anyways, everyone, enjoy the video. Chapter 9. The first sensation was not light, but sound. A dull, muffled roar, like listening to the ocean from inside a deep cave. The second was the smell, sharp, clean antiseptic and the faint, coppery tang of old blood. Naruto's consciousness swam up from a deep, black, and blessedly empty void. He felt heavy, as if his gravity seal was still active, but his limbs were made of waterlogged cotton. Humph. You overdid it, brat. The voice in his head was a familiar, grumpy rumble. It was the most comforting sound in the world. You poured so much of my chakra into that Rin rebirth, I feel like I've been run over by the other 8 by Juu. We're scraped completely dry. Don't plan on moving for a while. Mom? Naruto managed to project, his thoughts thick and slow. She's fine, Kurama grumbled. Drained. She gave that red-haired fool a piece of her own life force. Idiot. But she's stable. She's next to you. Now, let me sleep. And don't ever do that again without asking. With that, the massive presence in his mind fell into a true, healing sleep. Naruto's eyelids felt like they were made of lead, but he forced them open. The world was a blur of tan canvas, the inside of a large medical tent. The roar he'd heard wasn't the ocean, it was the distant, muffled sound of thousands of people. He turned his head, his neck muscles screaming in protest. Kushina was in a cot next to him, just as Kurama had said. She was fast asleep, her breathing deep and even, her fiery red hair splayed out on the pillow. She looked pale, exhausted, but peaceful. She's been asleep for 2 days. The voice was a low, smooth purr. Naruto's head snapped towards the sound, a move he instantly regretted as his vision swam. Yugito-ni sat on a simple wooden stool between their cots, her posture relaxed, her cat-like eyes watching him with an unreadable, quiet intensity. She wasn't in her battle gear, but in simple, off-duty Kumo robes. You're awake, she stated. 2 days? Naruto rasped, his throat feeling like sandpaper. Yugito nodded, offering him a cup of water from the bedside table. He took it, his hands shaking slightly, and drank greedily. You and Kushina-sama have been unconscious since the battle, she explained, her voice quiet, respectful. Lord Raikage, B-sama, and I returned from the capital this morning. The daimyo has pledged the full support of the Land of Lightning for the reconstruction. The village? Naruto asked, his mind still fuzzy. The crater, Yugito corrected, a flicker of that old, grim humor in her eyes. But the people are alive. All of them. Thanks to you. She gestured to the tent flap. You probably hear them. They haven't been quiet for 2 days. The whole village is out there, working, clearing rubble. But they've left this tent in a circle of perfect silence. They're afraid to disturb you. Naruto looked confused. Afraid? Not afraid, Yugito corrected herself, her gaze softening. In awe. They're calling you Kumo's Kensetsu. The Golden Miracle. There are offerings outside. Flowers, food, prayer scrolls. From families you saved. From children whose parents you brought back. Naruto just stared into his empty cup, a profound discomfort settling on him. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a miracle. He had just done what needed to be done. I'm glad they're okay. You gave us our people back, Yugito said, her voice dropping, losing its usual teasing edge. My subordinates. My friends. You saved Samui. She was dead. I felt her chakra extinguish. She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw not a rival, or a political partner, but a woman completely undone by gratitude. She stood from her stool and, before Naruto could react, gave a deep, formal bow, her blonde hair falling forward. On behalf of all of Kumagakure. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. Hey, come on, you don't have to. Naruto started, completely embarrassed. Ugh. My head. A groan from the next cot cut him off. Feels like I was run over by a Baijuu. Kushina's eyes fluttered open, her hand immediately going to her forehead. Her gaze was unfocused for a second before it sharpened, locking onto her son. Sochi? I'm right here, Mom, Naruto said, a wave of relief washing over him. Kushina let out a long breath, then her eyes found Yugito. The motherly concern vanished, replaced by the crisp, focused authority of the Uzumaki matriarch. Yugito-san. A report. Kushina-sama. Welcome back. Yugito's posture straightened instantly. The village is secure. The survivors are being marshaled. Kushina. Naruto. The tent flap was thrown open, and the massive frame of the rakeage filled the entrance, blocking out the light. Ai's face was a mask of grim, weary exhaustion, but the wild, grief-stricken rage was gone. He walked in, followed by Kyūbi, whose usual grin was absent, his expression somber. Kushina said, her voice still weak but regaining its steel. Your village? Is in ruins, stated, his voice a low rumble. Our home is gone. It will take a generation to rebuild. He stopped at the foot of their beds, his massive arms crossed. But my people are alive. Every last one you saved. Thanks to you. He looked at Kushina, then at Naruto, and did something that shocked everyone in the tent. He bowed. Not a shallow nod, but a deep, formal bow from the waist. Kumaga-kur is in your debt. A debt that can never be repaid. We just did what anyone would have done, Naruto mumbled, still uncomfortable. No, said, straightening up, his gaze fierce. You did what no one else could. You and your mother. You have saved the land of lightning. Kushina, ever the pragmatist, saw the opening. The emotional, political, and strategic landscape had just been completely rewritten. What does this mean for our agreement, The rakeage met her gaze. He knew exactly what she was asking. The 3-year training. The rebuilding of Uzushio. The marriage contract. The reconstruction of Uzushio Gakur, stated, his voice resin note with finality, will be completed. Not as a reparation for a past crime, or as the term of a contract. It will be a gift. An offering of gratitude from one allied nation to another. The full, unrestricted might of Kumagakur's resources and manpower will be at your disposal, effective immediately. Kushina nodded, accepting. And the other matter? Looked from Naruto to a now listening Yugito, and a faint, weary smile touched his lips. The marriage contract is nullified. Naruto's head snapped up, a flicker of surprised relief in his eyes. An alliance built on a debt is not an alliance, it's a chain, the rakeage said, his voice firm. Kumo will not chain its saviors. Your 3-year training. It is complete. You have learned all I can teach you. You are free to return to Konoha whenever you wish, as heroes. He looked at Yugito, then back at Naruto, his gaze softening. Any future arrangement between you, or with Samui, will be a matter of personal choice. Not politics. Yugito's eyes met Naruto's, a new, complicated warmth in their depths. Thank you, Kushina said, a profound sense of relief in her voice. The political gamble she had made years ago had paid off in a way she could never have imagined. Her son was free. That's good, Naruto said, pushing himself into a sitting position, the world steadying around him. Because our problem is much bigger than a simple contract now. The mood in the tent shifted, the warmth of gratitude replaced by the cold chill of the coming war. Naruto looked at his mother, then at the rakeage, his expression now one of a cage-level shinobi. We need to talk about Tobi. We need to talk about Danzo. And we need to talk about the Rinnegan. Naruto's words, spoken with the simple, declarative weight of fact, landed in the tent with the force of a physical blow. The warmth of the rakeage's gratitude, the relief in Kushina's eyes, it all vanished, replaced by a sudden, sharp, and chilling silence. Yugito, who had been standing in a respectful, almost relaxed posture, snapped to a defensive stance. Kyūbi, for the first time since they'd met, let his ever-present rhythm drop, his body going unnervingly still. Ai's face, which had been a mask of weary relief, hardened. The temperature in the tent seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brat, he growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that vibrated with barely contained power. What did you just say? Kushina saw the atmosphere shift. She saw Ai's hand, which had been relaxed at his side, clench into a massive, scarred fist. She had to take control, now. She pushed herself into a fully upright, sitting position, ignoring the painful protest of her drained body. She said, her voice cutting through the tension, sharp and clear. Yugito-san. What Naruto is about to say. What we are about to tell you. Is an S-rank secret that does not leave this tent. It is cage-level intelligence, and it is the only reason we are all still alive. Ai's gaze snapped to her. The Rinnegan? You mean those eyes? The ones the Devapath puppet used? His voice was thick with disbelief and a dawning, terrible suspicion. The eyes of the Sage of Six Paths? The ones Kumo's most sacred texts speak of as a myth? They are not a myth, Naruto said, his voice quiet but firm as he met the Raikage's gaze. We have them, Kushina stated. If her first statement had been a shock, this one was a thunderclap. A, B, and Yugito all took an involuntary step back. You have them? I's voice was a choked whisper. Explain. Now. Kushina took a deep, steadying breath, her mind racing as she assembled the partial truths she had formulated in the long, dark hours of her recovery. This had to be perfect. The man you knew as Pain was a network of puppets, she began, her voice crisp and analytical. 6 of them, all controlled by a single user from a remote location. They were just tools. We knew that, Yugito interjected. We fought them. But the user, Kushina continued, her gaze hardening, was the one we tracked down after the battle. He was hidden, high in the mountains. He was a distant relative of mine. An Uzumaki. What? A roared, taking a step forward. An Uzumaki did this? To my village? After what we? He was a victim, A. Kushina's voice snapped like a whip, silencing him instantly. A victim of the same man who attacked Konoha 16 years ago. The same man who ripped Kurama from my body. The man in the orange mask. Toby. A new, colder silence fell. B and Yugito exchanged a look of dawning horror. They all knew that name. I've had a lot of time to think, Kushina said, her voice dropping, becoming more measured. While I was asleep, and even before I collapsed. The pieces. They finally fit. This Toby, who claims to be Madara Uchiha, has been moving in the shadows for decades. He finds broken people, people consumed by pain, and he gives them power. He twists them into his tools. She looked at A, her eyes filled with a grim understanding. This Nagato, the Uzumaki controller. His family was killed by Konoha shinobi during the Second War. He was an orphan, just like Toby wanted. And at some point, Toby, or someone working for him, gave him those eyes. Gave him? A was struggling to keep up with the scale of the revelation. The Rinnegan, Kushina confirmed, her voice laced with disgust. They weren't his. They were parasites, grafted onto his chakra system. The only reason he could even wield them was because his Uzumaki blood, his immense life force, was strong enough to sustain them. He was a living battery, A disposable weapon for Toby to aim at the world, and he aimed him at you. She paused, letting the weight of the manipulation sink in. When Naruto and I found his chamber, he was barely human. A skeleton, wired into a machine, those eyes draining the very life from him just to power his puppets. So, what happened? Yugito asked, her voice barely a whisper. Here, Kushina's voice became cold. The lie had to be brutal. It had to be Akage's decision. He was dying, she said, her voice flat. But he was still loyal to Toby's warped ideals. He still believed that pain was the only path to peace. He was a threat that could not be allowed to exist. And those eyes. They were the true prize. Toby's entire plan hinged on them. I would not let him reclaim them. She looked the Raikage dead in the eye. So I made a choice. In the middle of the fight, I took them. I ripped them from his body. The tent was deathly silent. A, B, and Yugito stared at her. The image of the fiery, passionate woman was gone, replaced by a cold, pragmatic Kage who would mutilate an enemy, even her own kin, to secure a strategic weapon. It was a brutal act. And exactly what a Kage would have done in his position. The strain of the battle, Kushina finished, her voice softening with a convincing, weary sorrow, combined with the shock of removing the eyes. He didn't survive. He's dead. She closed her own eyes, as if in painful memory, perfectly hiding the truth of Nagato's and Konan's escape. That was when the miracle happened, Naruto spoke up, taking the cue. When he died, the Rinnegan's ultimate jutsu. The ghetto art. It backfired. He had used it to kill, but with his death, and with the last of my chakra, which I had poured into his machine trying to stop him. It reversed. It brought everyone back. It was a brilliant, convoluted explanation. It explained the revival, it confirmed Nagato's death, and it secured the Rinnegan, all without revealing the truth. A was silent for a long, heavy minute, his mind processing the sheer, continent-shifting weight of what he'd just been told. Toby. Madara. A Baijuu hunting organization. An Uzumaki puppet. And the Rinnegan. Where are they? He finally growled. The eyes? Naruto met his gaze. He placed a hand over his own sternum, where the preservation jar was sealed. Safe. Off the board. Toby can't get them. The raikage let out a breath that was half sigh, half growl. He looked at Kushina, then at Naruto. The gratitude was still there, but it was now forged into something harder, sharper. It was the gratitude of a fellow warrior in a war he hadn't known he was fighting. This Toby, A said, his voice a low vibration of pure, focused rage. He used my village. My home. As a test for his weapon. He threw thousands of my people's lives away. Just to see what would happen. He was after all of us, Kushina said grimly. Naruto, B, Yugito. The destruction was a distraction. His goal was to capture the Baijuo. He failed. He lost his greatest asset, and we now hold his greatest prize. This changes everything, A stated. He looked at Kushina, his fellow warrior, his new, true ally. Your contract is nullified. That stands. But this is no longer an alliance of gratitude, or of politics. This is a wartime alliance. The Akatsuki has declared war on the entire world. And we are the only ones who truly know the face of the enemy. He turned to his brother. B. Yugito. This information is Kumo's most guarded secret. Got it, bro, the secret's sealed. The truth of pain has been revealed. B's voice was low, his usual rhyme lacking its joy, replaced by a grim resolve. We will return to Konoha immediately, Kushina said, already moving to sit up, her body aching but her mind clear. We have a shadow of our own to deal with. A nodded, his expression dark. He knew of Danzo Shimura by reputation. Go. And Kushina. Naruto. What you have done here. You have not just saved Kumo. You have given us a fighting chance in the war to come. When the time comes to hunt this Toby into the light. He clenched his fist. Kumagakure will be at your side. Not as a debtor. As an equal. The journey back, which began 2 days later, was a somber, high-speed affair. A had provided them with a personal escort of his finest Anbu, including Daru and Samui, to the land of lightning's border. The goodbyes were brief, but heavy with unspoken meaning. Yugito stood before Naruto, her usual teasing smirk gone. So? You're leaving. For now, Naruto said, offering a small, tired smile. I've got a war to prepare for. We all do. You. Be careful, she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Your choice. It was an honor, Naruto. You too, Yugito, he replied. Take care of yourself. B stepped up, offering a fist. Naruto met it. Yo, little bro, you're flying high. Come back soon, don't say goodbye. B's rhyme was back, a fragile but defiant spark of hope. We got a world to save, it's true. Konoha and Kumo, me and you. Naruto grinned, a real grin. Count on it. He and Kushina turned and flickered, vanishing from the border in a streak of Konoha-bound light. They moved in silence for hours, the weight of their secrets, their lies, and the coming war settling on them. As they finally crossed the border back into the land of fire, the familiar green canopy of Konoha's forest stretching out before them, Kushina finally spoke. What you did, Naruto. Pouring your chakra into Nagato. That was Akage's decision, I know I prompted it, but still, she said, her voice filled with a profound, bone-deep pride. You didn't choose vengeance. You chose life. Your father would have been so proud. We both did, Mom, Naruto replied, his voice quiet. He looked ahead, his gaze fixed on the distant but nearing walls of his home. But it's not over. We just took one piece off the board. I know, Kushina said, her own gaze hardening, a cold, familiar fire entering her eyes. Now, we go home. And we deal with the one who's been poisoning the well for 30 years. They landed on the Hokage monument, on Minato's head, and looked down at their village. It was peaceful, unaware of the war that had just been declared in its name. It's time, Kushina said, for Danzo Shimura to finally answer for his crimes. They didn't wait. They didn't rest. The moment their feet touched the familiar stone of Minato's carved face, they vanished in a simultaneous flicker of speed, reappearing not at their home, but in the center of the Hokage's office. The room was not quiet. It was a hub of frantic, controlled chaos. Anbu captains and high-ranking jonin stood before Hiruzen's desk, giving rapid-fire reports. The air was thick with tension. I don't care about Iwa's posturing. Hiruzen's voice was a low, tired growl, cutting through the noise. Triple the border patrols. I want every sensor we have on the walls. We are at DEFCON 1 until we get a clear picture from Hiruzen. Kushina's voice, sharp and commanding, sliced through the chaos. The Anbu in the room spun, their hands flying to their weapons as she and Naruto appeared in the center of the room, still in their travel-worn Kumo attire, radiating exhaustion and a power that made the air crackle. "Stand down," Hiruzen roared. He looked at Kushina and Naruto, his face a mask of profound, weary relief. "Thank God. We've been getting frantic reports for the last 12 hours. A Kumo messenger team. They were dead tired. They babbled about the village being gone. About the Akatsuki." He waved his hand, dismissing the others. "Out. All of you. Now." The room cleared in seconds. Hiruzen looked at them, his old eyes wide with a terrible, desperate question. "Kushina. Naruto. Tell me. Is it true?" "It's true," Kushina said, her voice low. Her gaze flickered, not to the Hokage, but to the ceiling panels above him, and then to the large tapestry depicting the first Hokage behind his desk. "But this office is not secure." Hiruzen, his mind already reeling from the confirmation, frowned. "What? This is the most secure room in the village, He was cut off by two sounds, so fast they were almost simultaneous. Flicker. Naruto, wreathed in a low-level, crackling blue lightning armor, vanished. Two heavy thuds echoed from the ceiling panels as he reappeared, his hand having chopped down on the necks of two hidden root Anbu, who fell to the floor, unconscious. Shing. Kushina's adamantine ceiling chains, ethereal and silver, shot from her back. They phased through the wall behind Hiruzen's desk, and a second later, two more root operatives were dragged, struggling, through the solid stone, their chakra already bound. It was over in less than a second. Hiruzen stared, his pipe clattering from his fingers, spilling ash across his desk. His personal office. Infiltrated. "Now, we can talk," Kushina said, her voice like ice as her chains held the struggling root Anbu. She looked at her old leader. "Seal this room, Hiruzen. No one enters. No one leaves. And no one listens." Shaken to his core, Hiruzen made the hand signs, and the privacy seals on his office flared to life, glowing a dull red. The faint hum of a soundproof, chakra-proof barrier settled over the room. They were Danzo's, Hiruzen whispered, his face ashen as he looked at the masked shinobi. "Of course they were," Kushina said. She turned to the two conscious, struggling root members. "Your master is a traitor. You will stand down, or you will be executed." When they continued to struggle, Kushina's chains tightened, and the two men went limp, dead. Their loyalty, she knew, was absolute. She let their bodies fall to the floor beside their comrades. "Now," Kushina said, finally turning her full, exhausted attention to the Hokage. "The reports you got were true. Kumagakure is a traitor. The man who did it was Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki." Hiruzen, his face ashen, sank into his chair. "The messengers. They spoke of a miracle. A green light. Of thousands of dead. Revived. They said it was you. Was that true?" "Yes," Naruto said, his voice quiet. We saved them all, Gigi. Every last person." Hiruzen stared, his mind struggling. How is that possible? What happened?" "It's complicated," Kushina said, her voice heavy. "The controller of Pain, a man named Nagato, was a distant relative. An Uzumaki. And he was being manipulated by Tobi. The man in the orange mask." Hiruzen's blood ran cold. "Tobi. He has been using the Akatsuki to hunt the Baijuu," Kushina continued, her voice a low, furious hiss. "He armed this Nagato with the Rinnegan. He aimed him at Kumo to capture Naruto, and Yugito. The destruction was collateral damage. The Rinnegan?" Hiruzen choked out the word, his face pale. "It's real?" "It's real," Naruto confirmed, his hand instinctively touching his sternum. "And Tobi will do anything to get it. This Nagato." Kushina's voice softened, the fury replaced by a deep, weary sorrow. "His family was killed by Konoha shinobi during the Second War. He was an orphan. And he and his friends, they were found by Jiraiya. They were Jiraiya's students." Hiruzen's eyes widened in profound shock. "Jiraiya. He never said. He taught them, he gave them hope, he believed in them." Kushina's voice rose, trembling with a righteous fury. "And after he left, they formed an organization to bring peace to Amigakure. They were successful. Until their success threatened Hanzo. And Hanzo laid a trap." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than any shout. "And do you know who stood beside Hanzo at that trap?" Who gave Hanzo the backing of Konoha's route to slaughter a group of shinobi who were actively trying to forge peace? Who was responsible for Yahiko's death, for the corruption of Jiraiya's legacy, and for the creation of the monster that just destroyed an entire great village? Hiruzen didn't need to hear the answer. His face was a mask of gray, ashen horror. No. Danzo. Danzo Shimura, Kushina finished, her voice like the slam of a vault door. His shadow operation. His treason has just dragged the entire world to the brink of a new war. We defeated him, old man, Naruto spoke up, his voice quiet but intense. The puppets. We found Nagato. We told him the truth. About Danzo. About Tobi. About everything. Kushina nodded, taking over. He saw what he had become. A puppet for his own grief, and for Tobi. He chose to atone. He used the ghetto art of Rin rebirth. He was going to trade his life for the people of Kumo. That jutsu. It's suicide, Hiruzen whispered. It was, Naruto said. He didn't have enough chakra. He was dying, and the revival was failing. So, I gave him mine. I poured Kurama's chakra into him, boosted the jutsu. We saved them all, Gigi. Every last person. Hiruzen sank back into his chair, his mind reeling from the impossible flood of information. Destruction. Revival. The Rinnegan. Tobi. Danzo. Nagato. He survived, Kushina said, her voice soft. Barely. He is my kin, Hiruzen. The last of my line besides me and Naruto. I couldn't let him die. Not after he'd been a victim his entire life. What did you do? Hiruzen asked. I removed the Rinnegan, she stated simply. They were parasites, killing him, and they are Tobi's true prize. Naruto has them sealed. They are off the board. Then I sent him and his partner, Konan, to Uzushio. They are to live there, in secret, and heal. It is the only place in the world Tobi cannot find them. Hiruzen processed this. To Uzushio? But the workers from Wave? Kazana's crew? They went home, Kushina said. Their initial contract was up, and they'd earned a rest. The island is nearly complete anyway, just minor work left. And after this, I doubt Kumo will be sending the final phase of funding anytime soon. They have their own city to rebuild. It gives Nagato and Konan all the time they need to recover, in total secrecy. Hiruzen looked at his two most powerful shinobi. They had not only won an impossible victory but had revived an entire village, secured the world's most dangerous dojutsu, and turned their greatest enemy into a hidden, broken ally. And the root of all of it. The poison. Led back to this very village. He had protected his old friend, made excuses for his rival's darkness for far too long. He had chosen loyalty over justice, and the bill had finally come due, written in the blood of an allied nation. His face, which had been a mask of shock and grief, hardened into the grim, resolute expression of the god of shinobi. He had made a mistake. It was time to correct it. He pressed a hand to the intercom on his desk. Anbu. Summon Danzo Shimura and the elders, Homura and Koharu, to my office. Immediately. Tell them it is a matter of village-wide emergency. Hiruzen, Kushina said, her voice a low warning. This is not a debate. It is not, Hiruzen agreed, his voice heavy. It is a reckoning. 10 minutes later, the office was suffocatingly tense. Homura and Koharu stood by the wall, their expressions a mixture of confusion and annoyance at the late-night summons. Danzo Shimura stood before the desk, his one visible eye calm and assessing. His gaze flickered to the 4 dead root operatives on the floor, then to Kushina and Naruto, and his calm faltered, replaced by a cold, calculating fury. Hiruzen, Danzo began, his voice a dry rasp. You have been busy. Killing my men? Be silent, Danzo. Hiruzen's voice was a cold, quiet command that stunned the elders into silence. Your actions in Amigakure, your unsanctioned alliance with Hanzo of the Salamander, have been brought to light. These are baseless accusations. Koharu sputtered. Hiruzen, you cannot. It is the truth, Kushina's voice cut through the air. Her 9 golden chakra tails, remnants of her battle-ready state, erupted from her back. Naruto's own golden white lightning armor flared in perfect, silent sync. The power was so immense, so suffocating, that the 2 elders fell back against the wall, gasping for air. This is not a trial, Danzo, Kushina said, her voice a low, lethal purr as she took a step forward. This is a sentence. You have been a cancer in this village for my entire life. You tried to turn my son into a weapon. You drove the Uchiha to the brink. You are the reason my husband is dead. And now, Your poison has finally bloomed and destroyed an allied nation. It ends. Now. You dare? Danzo roared, his bravado returning. You would threaten the council? In the Hokage's own office? This is treason. Hiruzen, control your weapon. She is not a weapon, Hiruzen said, his voice quiet but absolute. He stood, his gaze fixed on his old friend. And she is right. He looked at Danzo, and for the last time, he was not Hiruzen the friend, but Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Danzo Shimura. For high treason against Konohagakure, for conspiring with foreign, hostile powers, and for actions directly resulting in the catastrophic loss of allied lives, you are hereby stripped of your council status and command of route. You will be taken to the TNI department for full interrogation. Surrender, Danzo. Danzo stared, his one eye wide with the fury of a cornered, rabid animal. He had been outmaneuvered Toby. You weak-willed, sentimental fool. He shrieked at Hiruzen. You have doomed us all. Root is my creation. It will outlive me. It will. Kushina's chains lanced out, wrapping around Danzo's body, his limbs, his mouth, binding him in a cocoon of pure, chakra-nullifying power. His words were cut off, his every tenketsu point sealed. He was, for the first time in his life, utterly powerless. Iviki Morino, Kushina said, her voice ringing with absolute authority. We'll be handling the interrogation. Personally. I want every base, every agent, every hidden seal, and every last one of his secrets. I want root cut out of this village, branch and all, before the sun rises. She looked at Hiruzen, who simply nodded, the heavy burden of his long reign finally settling on him. He had let this go on for too long. But no more. Naruto, Kushina said, her chakra tails receding. Take out the trash. Naruto, his golden white armor still crackling with contained power, grabbed the cocooned, powerless form of Danzo Shimura by the back of his robes. He didn't spare a glance for the horrified, sputtering elders, Homura and Koharu, who were being held back by Hiruzen's Onbu guard. I'll take him to Iviki, Naruto said, his voice a cold, flat monotone that held no trace of the boy who had left for Kumo. We'll begin the interrogation immediately. Hiruzen, who looked to have aged a decade in the last hour, gave a single, heavy nod. See it done, Naruto. No one is to interfere. Not even me. This rot must be purged. Completely. With a final, silent look, Naruto flickered from the office, dragging the bound traitor with him, a golden white phantom vanishing into the night. Kushina's 9 chakra tails receded, her own power banking as the immediate threat was contained. She was left standing in the office, the adrenaline of the past 48 hours draining away, leaving a bone-deep, profound weariness in its wake. Kushina. Hiruzen began, his voice a broken whisper as he looked at the bodies of the root Onbu. All this time. Under my very nose. Save it, Hiruzen, Kushina said, her voice rough with exhaustion. She walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the frame. You have a choice to make. You can either be the sentimental old man who let this happen, or you can be the Hokage this village needs right now. I've cut the head off the snake. It's your job to make sure the body doesn't keep thrashing. She didn't wait for a reply. She walked out, leaving the third Hokage alone in his sealed, silent office to confront the ghosts of his long, complicated reign. Far to the north, in the stone fortress of Iwagakure, that Tsuchikage's office was lit by a single, dim lamp. Aniki, the third Tsuchikage, was hunched over a map, a grimace on his face as he tried to rub the chronic ache from his lower back. Reports from Kumo's border had been confusing. First, rumors of an alliance with Konoha. Then, just hours ago, a tremor so massive his own sensors had felt it. More trouble from that arrogant fool, eh? He grumbled to himself. First he allies with Minato's brat, now he's... What? Testing weapons? Oh, it was a test, all right. The voice, cheerful and obnoxiously high-pitched, made Aniki jolt, his back screaming in protest. He spun, his chakra flaring, his hands already prepared to form the seals for his particle style. Who's there? Show yourself. A figure swirled into existence in the center of his office, seemingly coalescing from a vortex in the air. The man wore a black cloak with red clouds, and a single, ridiculous-looking orange mask. Toby, of the Akatsuki. Aniki snarled, his small body tensing. You dare infiltrate my village? My very office? You have a death wish, boy. Whoa, hold on, Tsuchikage-sama. Toby chirped, holding his hands up in a gesture of surrender. Don't pulverize me. I'm just a simple messenger. I come with a gift. I am not interested in gifts from a terrorist organization, Aniki growled. Leave, before I turn you to dust. But this gift is so good, Toby insisted. His head tilted, and his voice suddenly dropped, losing all its childish affectation, becoming a low, deep, and ancient rumble that sent a shiver down Anaki's spine. It was the voice of Madara Uchiha. I come with the news you've been waiting your entire life to hear, Anaki. Anaki's guard, which had been absolute, faltered for a fraction of a second. Kumaga-kur, Toby's voice was a deep, satisfied purr, has fallen. The Tsuchikage stared, his mind refusing to process the words. What did you say? My subordinate, Pain, has delivered divine judgment, Toby said, his form radiating a cold, immense pressure. The village hidden in the clouds. Their mountains, their fortress. It has been leveled. Reduced to a smoking, flat crater. A catastrophic blow, from which they will never recover. Anaki's mind, the sharp, calculating mind of a Kage who had survived 3 wars, raced. Kumo. Leveled? This was a game changer. You're lying. A would not. Oh, A survived, Toby interrupted, his voice full of mock pity. He survived, along with his brother and a handful of his precious Jinchuriki. But they survived only to watch their entire military infrastructure, their civilian population, and their economy be annihilated in a single instant. They are broken, Anaki. Demoralized. Their legendary pride. Shattered. They have no home, no resources, and a leader who has just been proven utterly powerless. This was an even more tantalizing opportunity. A living but defeated rival. So the Raikage lives. Anaki mused, but his fangs have been pulled. His Jinchuriki are still a threat. Are they? Toby chuckled, reverting to his high-pitched chirp. They were severely weakened in the attack. My subordinate did a wonderful job. They are a broken, leaderless, and homeless nation. A power vacuum, wouldn't you say? Just a lot of prime, undefended territory. Right on your border. Ripe for the taking. Anaki said nothing. His mind was already redrawing the map of the world. With Kumo crippled, Konoha's new alliance was shattered. Iwo was now, by default, the dominant military power in the north. Of course, Toby continued, this was all according to plan. A necessary step to achieve true peace. And to gather the Baijiu. We're very good at our job, you see. He conveniently neglected to mention that his subordinate had been defeated and that not a single Baijiu had been captured. And what do you get from this, Madara? Anaki snarled, suspicion warring with his ambition. Peace. Toby chirped. But I just thought you, as an old friend, should know about this wonderful new opportunity. As he spoke, the single, dark hole of his mask seemed to burn into Anaki. The Tsuchikage suddenly felt a strange, compelling jolt of pure, unadulterated ambition. The thought of Kumo's vast, unprotected lands, their mines, their strategic choke points. It was all just there. For the taking. Anaki didn't notice the subtle, crimson shift in Toby's eye, nor did he feel the whisper of a genjutsu, a simple, masterful nudge that wasn't a command, but an amplification of his own deepest, darkest desires. A weakened Kumo. A Konoha still rebuilding. An alliance in tatters, Anaki murmured to himself, the genjutsu-fueled logic feeling like his own. This is a chance. To reclaim what was lost in the last war. To secure Iwa's future. See? I knew you'd get it. Toby clapped his hands. You're a smart old man. Well, I just wanted to share the good news. I've got places to be, things to collect. Toodles. With a final, mocking wave, Toby's form swirled and vanished, leaving the Tsuchikage alone in his silent office. Anaki stood motionless for a full minute, his mind racing. He was suspicious of the Akatsuki, of this Toby. But the logic, the opportunity, was undeniable. Kumo was weak. Konoha was overextended. The world was in chaos. And in chaos, there was profit. He turned, his back groaning in protest, and walked to his desk. He struck a bell. Get me my counsel, he growled to the Anbu who appeared. And get me a full reconnaissance report on the Land of Lightning's border. Now. It seems. The entire world map is about to be redrawn. 3 days later, the Namikaze Uzumaki compound was quiet. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, the air was still, free of the tension of war or the buzz of an impending mission. In the backyard, Naruto was asleep. He was slumped over on the Engawa, his head resting on his arms, dead to the world. He had slept for nearly 72 hours straight, his body and his chakra network desperately recovering from the monumental strain of the battle with pain, the supercharged Rin rebirth, and the final confrontation with Danzo. Kushina sat at the low table just inside the open door, sipping a cup of tea, her gaze never leaving her son. She, too, was exhausted, her own vitality running low after her gift to Nagato, but a mother's watch was absolute. The silence was broken by the sound of the compound's front gate sliding open, followed by frantic, heavy footsteps and a voice that was pure, unadulterated panic. Kushina. Naruto. Kushina sighed, a small, tired smile on her face. Right on time. Jiraiya of the Sannin burst onto the porch, his face pale, his usual boisterous energy replaced by a frantic, wild-eyed terror. He had clearly just returned to the village. Kushina. I just got back. I heard the reports from the Kumo messengers. And then I went to Hiruzen. He told me everything. Kushina. Is it true? He looked from her calm, weary face to the sleeping form of his godson. Kumagakure? The Akatsuki? Nagato? My student? The last words were a broken, horrified whisper. Naruto stirred at the sound, his head lifting groggily. He blinked, his vision blurry, and saw his godfather standing there, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Uro-sennin? What's going on? Kushina stood up, her expression hardening, not with anger, but with a deep, profound sorrow. He knows, Naruto. She looked at her old friend, her former sensei's student, and her heart ached for him. Jiraiya, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Sit down. We have a lot to talk about. About your students. About Danzo. And you are not going to like any of it. Jiraiya stumbled onto the porch, his face a mask of anguish. He looked at Kushina's grim, sorrowful expression and at Naruto, who was now awake, his eyes clear and sharp, watching his godfather with a pained understanding. He told me. Jiraiya's voice was a ragged whisper. He sank onto the edge of the Ingawa, his massive frame seeming to fold in on itself. Hiruzen told me everything. Danzo. Hanzo. The ambush. Toby. He finally looked up, his eyes, usually so full of life and mischief, were hollow, haunted. Nagato. Yahiko. Konan. My students. Kushina sat down at the low table, her movements slow and deliberate. She poured a cup of tea with a steady hand, the rising steam a stark contrast to the storm of emotion radiating from the Sannin. They were good kids, Kushina, Jiraiya whispered, his gaze distant, lost in a rain-soaked memory. Yahiko. He was so bright. So much like Minato. He just wanted peace. He wanted to protect his friends. I believed in them. I thought my search was over. That they were the children of the prophecy. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. And I left them. I left them in that godforsaken country with a madman like Hanzo and a monster like Danzo. I failed them. I should have stayed. I should have seen. I should have known. Yes, you should have, Kushina said, her voice quiet but sharp, cutting through his self-pity. Jiraiya's head snapped up, his eyes wide with pained surprise. He had expected comfort, perhaps, or shared grief. Not this cold, hard agreement. You were naive, Jiraiya, Kushina continued, her violet eyes unblinking. You saw 3 orphans, you taught them to be strong, and you left them in the middle of a war zone, hoping their hope would be enough to protect them. It was a fool's gamble. You failed to see the snakes in the grass, and your students paid the price for it. Each word was a precise, painful blow. Jiraiya flinched, but he didn't deny it. I thought I was teaching them to be independent. To build their own peace. And you did, Naruto spoke up, his voice clear and firm. He had risen from his sleeping spot and now stood beside his mother, his exhaustion forgotten. That's the part you're missing, Uro-sennin. Your teaching worked. You taught them to dream of peace. You taught them to build a better world. That's what they were doing. They were succeeding. Jiraiya looked at his godson, confused. They didn't fail, Naruto said, his gaze intense. They were betrayed. By Danzo. By Hanzo. And by Toby. Their dream was stolen from them and twisted into a nightmare. But the dream you gave them? It was real. We saw it, Jiraiya. Even at the very end, buried under all that pain, it was still there. It's the reason Konan listened to us. It's the reason Nagato. It's the reason he chose to atone. Kushina nodded, her expression softening. He's right. Your teachings didn't create pain, Jiraiya. They were the one thing that allowed us to stop him. Your kindness was the key. But your quest. Your search for the child of prophecy. You've been looking in all the wrong places. My quest, Jiraiya murmured, the words tasting like ash. It's over. It was all a failure. No, it's not, Kushina said, her voice like steel. She stood, walking over to him, and for a moment, she looked less like his student's wife and more like her old sensei, Sarutobi. Your quest isn't over. It just changed. You're not looking for a child to save the world anymore. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip iron hard. You're going to train him too. Jiraiya's eyes slowly focused, moving from Kushina's determined face to Naruto's. He saw the boy who had stood against a god, the boy who had mastered cage-level techniques, the boy who held the Rinnegan in a seal on his chest. He saw the answer. For 3 years, I've let A hammer him into a weapon, Kushina said, her voice a low, fierce growl. He has my chains and my vitality. He has his father's speed. He has the Raikage's lightning. But he doesn't have your tricks, Jiraiya. He doesn't have your experience. He doesn't have your cunning. And, she paused, her gaze intent, he doesn't have Sage Mode. Sage Mode, Jiraiya whispered, the word sparking a new, forgotten fire in his soul. The toads. Yes. Yes, he's Minato's boy, he has the reserves. He's the only one who could. He's the one. Tobi is still out there, Naruto said, his voice grim. He's lost pain, and he's lost the Rinnegan. He is going to be furious. And he's coming for me and B. I need to be ready. I need you to make me ready, pervy sage. The fog of guilt and despair in Jiraiya's mind finally cleared, burned away by a new, white-hot, singular purpose. His quest hadn't been a failure. It had just been indirect. The prophecy was real. And the child was standing right in front of him, asking for the tools to finish the job. Jiraiya stood, his massive frame uncurling to its full height. The broken Sannin was gone, replaced by the toad sage of Mount Myaboku. All right, Gaki, he said, a slow, determined grin spreading across his face. Your mother and the Raikage taught you how to be a storm. I'm going to teach you how to be a mountain. Your training starts tomorrow. The next few days were a blur of intense, focused activity. While Jiraiya and Naruto began the grueling preliminary training for Sage Mode at a hidden training ground, Kushina and Hiruzen began the purge. The interrogation of Danzo Shimura was effective. Ibiki, armed with Kushina's full authority and Naruto's fear seal, dismantled Danzo's psyche with terrifying precision. Every hidden base, every sleeper agent, every dark secret rooted cultivated for decades was laid bare. Kushina led the operation herself. With a combined force of Anbu, her own shadow clones, and the full backing of the Uchiha clan, who were all too eager to settle their own score with the man who had tormented them, they systematically tore Danzo's network apart. Secret bunkers were unearthed, agents were captured, and a shadow that had choked Konoha for a generation was finally, violently, exposed to the light. The village was in a state of controlled shock. But the purge was swift, clean, and absolute. It was on the 4th day, as Naruto was attempting to balance a stone slab on his finger in a perfect, meditative stillness, that an Anbu operative appeared. Hokage-sama summons you, Jiraiya-sama, and Kushina-sama to his office. It is a cage-level emergency. When they arrived, the office was no longer a place of chaos. It was a war room. Hiruzen stood before a massive map of the elemental nations. He's made his move, Hiruzen said, his voice grim. I just received this from our sensors on the border. He pointed to the map, at the border between the land of earth and the land of lightning. Red tasseled pins, representing Iwa platoons, were massed at the border. Anaki is mobilizing, Hiruzen stated. The old fence-sitter. He thinks Kumo is crippled and leaderless. He's preparing a full-scale invasion to seize their territory. The old fool, Jiraiya growled. He's just seen an opportunity for a land grab. He's about to start the 4th Great War, all based on a bad assumption. Not if A has anything to say about it, Kushina said, her eyes sharp. What's the Raikage's move? He's called for an emergency cage summit, Hiruzen said. At the Land of Iron. A neutral territory. He, Anaki, and the new Mizukage, Mei Terumi, will all be in attendance. He has sent an urgent dispatch. He needs Konoha there. He needs us to back his play, to show a united front against Iwa's aggression. He needs us to prove to Anaki that Kumo is not broken, and that an attack on them is an attack on us. Then I'll go, Kushina said, crossing her arms. I haven't seen that old fence-sitter Anaki in years. I owe him a message anyway. No, Hiruzen said, his voice quiet but firm. You are not going. Kushina's head snapped up. What? Your place is here, Kushina, Hiruzen said, his gaze unwavering. With Danzo's network shattered, our internal security is in absolute chaos. I am still purging his loyalists from our own ranks. You are the only one I trust to oversee the transition, To rebuild our intelligence division, and to keep this village locked down while I am gone. You are my acting commander in my absence. Then you're going, Jiraiya? Kushina asked, turning to the Sannin. No, Hiruzen interjected again. Jiraiya, you will remain here as well. Your primary mission is the one you have already started, train Naruto. But your secondary mission is to be our final line of defense. With me gone and Kushina occupied with the purge, you are the single strongest shinobi left in Konoha. I need you here, protecting the village in case this summit is a trap. Kushina and Jiraiya stared, a dawning realization settling in. If they were both staying. Yes, Hiruzen said, confirming their unspoken thought. I will go. As Hokage, I must be the one to face Aniki. I must be the one to show Konoha's strength. He turned his full, absolute attention to the 16-year-old boy standing before him. But I will not be going alone. Naruto, who had been listening silently, straightened up. Kumo is your ally, Naruto, Hiruzen said, his voice ringing with formal authority. A is your teacher. The Mizukage is in your debt. And you are the hero who saved Kumo. You are the living symbol of our two villages' unbreakable bond. Aniki is moving because he believes Kumo is weak and Konoha is an unreliable ally. We are going to prove him wrong on both counts. Gigi. What are you saying? Naruto breathed, his heart hammering. I am saying, Hiruzen said, a rare, fierce smile touching his lips, that you will accompany me to the land of iron. Not as a genin, not as an apprentice, but as the official bodyguard to the Hokage. You will be the only other person at my side. We will walk into that summit, just the two of us, and we will show them what Konoha's weakness looks like. We will show them the man who defeated pain. The journey to the land of iron was cold and silent. They moved at a punishing pace, a two-man cell traveling with the speed of an Anbu squad. The lush green of the land of fire gave way to the frosted pines and biting winds of the land of frost, a neutral territory that bordered the isolated, snow-capped nation of the samurai. Hiruzen, despite his age, moved with an easy, practiced grace. He had shed his formal robes for the lighter, more practical battle armor he had worn during the Kumo invasion, his cage hat strapped securely to his back. Naruto moved beside him, a silent, golden-white shadow against the snow. He wore his Kumo gifted armor, a sword strapped to his back, and his Konoha forehead protector gleaming. They didn't speak for the first few hours. There was no need. They were on a mission, and the silence was one of shared focus. It was Hiruzen who finally broke it, his voice a puff of white steam in the frigid air as they paused on a high ridge overlooking a frozen lake. You are quiet, Naruto-kun. Just thinking, Naruto replied, his gaze scanning the horizon, his senses pushed out, feeling for any possible ambush. It's a big risk, Gigi. You coming all this way with just me. Mom and Urosenin. They're the village's real power. You've left Konoha exposed. Hiruzen chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. On the contrary. I have left Konoha in the hands of its two most powerful defenders, one of whom is now my acting intelligence commander. The village has never been more secure. He turned, his old eyes serious. You are right. This is a risk. But it is a calculated one. Bringing you, and only you. It is the single greatest political statement I can make. Naruto looked at him, waiting for the explanation. To A, Hiruzen said, your presence is a symbol of our unbreakable alliance. He sees you, and he sees the hero who saved his people, the ally who honored his word. He will know we stand with him. To Mei Terumi, he continued, you are the Golden Ghost, the hero who liberated her nation. She will see you and know that Konoha's strength is real, and that it is on her side. Hiruzen took a slow breath, his gaze hardening. And Aniki. That Tsuchikage. He will see a ghost. He will see the son of Minato Namikaze, a man he both feared and despised. He will see the boy who, according to every rumor now blazing across the shinobi world, stood alone and defeated the wielder of the Rinnegan. He will see a power he does not understand, a power he cannot measure. And that, Naruto. That will make him hesitate. That fear is our greatest weapon today. He's not moving because he's brave, Gigi, Naruto said, his voice quiet but cold. He's moving because he thinks Kumo is easy prey. He's a bully, picking a fight he thinks he can't lose. We're not going there to scare him. We're going to show him he miscalculated. Hiruzen looked at the boy, no, the man, beside him. The maturity, the cold, pragmatic analysis. It was Minato's wisdom, tempered with Kushina's unshakable fire. You truly are their son, Hiruzen murmured, a profound pride in his voice. Let's go. We mustn't keep them waiting. The land of iron was a nation of silence, snow, and steel. Its fortress, a massive, multi-tiered pagoda of dark wood and stone, stood starkly against the white landscape. The air was thin, cold, and sterile. As they approached, they were met not by shinobi, but by samurai, clad in heavy, blue-black armor, their hands resting on the hilts of their katanas. The samurai were impassive, their faces hidden behind metal masks, and their chakra was almost non-existent, replaced by a strange, sharp energy that Naruto couldn't quite place. "Hokage-sama," the lead samurai greeted, his voice a metallic rasp. "You are expected. Your guard is small." The observation was flat, holding no judgment, yet it hung in the air. "Quality over quantity, Mifune-san," Hiruzen replied calmly, recognizing the general of the samurai. The general's gaze lingered on Naruto for a fraction of a second, assessing. "Indeed. This way. The others have arrived." They were led through cold, sterile halls, their footsteps echoing on the polished wood. The only sound was the faint, rhythmic clank of the samurai's armor. They were led to a massive, circular room. In the center, a huge, round table sat, a symbol of equality. The room was already thick with tension. Mei Terumi, the god-ime Mizukage, sat with a calm, diplomatic grace, flanked by her two bodyguards, Chojuro and Ao. The fourth Raikage, A, was the opposite. He was not sitting. He was pacing behind his chair like a caged thundercloud, his massive arms crossed, his cage robes doing nothing to hide the furious, crackling aura that surrounded him. His two guards, Daru and C, stood like stone, their faces grim. At the third side of the table sat Aniki, the third Tsuchikage, who was floating a few inches above his cushion, his expression one of bored, arrogant disdain. His two guards, Akatsuchi and his granddaughter Kurotsuchi, stood behind him, radiating the same stubborn Iwa confidence. The moment Hiruzen and Naruto entered, all conversation stopped. Every eye in the room locked onto them. Mei Terumi's visible eye widened slightly, and a small, almost imperceptible smile of relief touched her lips. The Raikage stopped pacing. He stared at Naruto, and for a fraction of a second, his furious expression softened into one of profound, absolute gratitude. He gave a single, sharp nod. The alliance was here. It was Aniki who broke the silence, his voice a reedy, mocking cackle. "Sarutobi. Have you finally gone senile in your old age?" He sneered, gesturing a thumb at Naruto. "You come to a cage summit, a meeting to prevent a world war. And you bring a child? Is this an insult? Has Konoha truly run out of shinobi that you must rely on Jinan as your personal guard?" Kurotsuchi, behind him, let out a dismissive scoff. "I guess the rumors of Konoha's strength were just that. Rumors." Hiruzen simply smiled, a calm, grandfatherly expression, as he walked to his seat. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. "You will be silent, Aniki." The Raikage's voice was a physical explosion, a roar of thunder that shook the very dust from the rafters. He slammed both of his massive, lightning-wreathed hands onto the solid iron table, denting the metal. "You dare mock him?" A bellowed, pointing a furious, trembling finger at Naruto. "That child is the hero of Kumo. When the Akatsuki leveled my village, when my own strength was not enough, he is the one who stood against a god. He is the one who defeated the wielder of the Rinnegan. He is the one who saved my people." Aniki's arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by a look of genuine, slack-jawed shock. "The Rinnegan?" Mei Terumi chose that moment to speak, her voice a calm, smooth counterpoint to Ai's fury. "The Raikage is correct, Tsuchikage Dono. Konoha's guard is a celebrated hero in Kirigakure as well. He is the man who single-handedly ended our civil war and defeated the Yondaime Mizukage. His presence here is significant." Aniki stared, his mind reeling. The reports. The rumors. They couldn't be true. This brat? Naruto, who had not spoken a single word, simply walked past the table. He took his position behind Hiruzen's chair, his hand resting calmly on the hilt of his sword. His blue eyes, cold and clear, met Aniki's. He didn't radiate killing intent. He didn't flare his chakra. He just stood. And in that gaze, Aniki saw it. He saw the ghost of Minato Namikaze. He saw the iron will of Kushina Uzumaki. And he saw a depth of power and experience that had no right to be in the eyes of a 16-year-old. The Tsuchikage, for the first time in decades, felt a genuine chill of fear. Hiruzen Sarutobi finally sat, pouring himself a cup of tea as if he were in his own office. He looked across the table at the now silent Tsuchikage. "Now then, Aniki," the third Hokage said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of the world. "Let us discuss this border patrol of yours." Chapter 10. The room was so silent, The only sound was the soft hiss of the tea in Hiruzen's cup. Anaki's arrogant, mocking expression had frozen, his reedy cackle dying in his throat. He stared, not at A, but at Mei, his mind trying to process what she had just said. Defeated the Yondaime Mizukage? Ended a civil war? And A. The Raikage's words slammed into him with the force of a physical blow. Defeated the wielder of the Rinnegan? The eyes of the Sage of Six Paths himself? Saved Kumo? This brat? The Tsuchikage, a veteran of 3 wars, a man who had faced Madara Uchiha himself, was, for the first time in his long, stubborn life, completely and utterly speechless. You lie, Kurotsuchi, his granddaughter, snapped, her voice sharp with disbelief, though her eyes betrayed a new uncertainty as she looked at Naruto. That's impossible. No Jinan could. He is no Jinan. Ai's voice was a low, dangerous growl, his patience completely gone. He is a Kage in all but name. I have trained him myself. I have seen his power. He is the only reason my village still has a people left to defend. You sit here on your high and mighty rock, Anaki, and you dare to mock the man who saved us, while you plot to stab us in the back like a common scavenger? The Raikage took a deep, shuddering breath, reining in his fury. The Akatsuki, the man called Pain, attacked my village. He leveled it. He killed thousands. His voice dropped, becoming thick with a raw emotion that stunned the Iwa shinobi into silence. And this boy? This child? He and his mother stood against him when I could not. They defeated him. And they brought my people back from the dead. Mei Terumi nodded, her expression grim. The Akatsuki's influence ran deep in Kiri, Tsuchikage Dono. Tobi, the man in the mask, was the one manipulating Yagura, fueling our war. Naruto-kun's intervention broke his hold. The rumors are not rumors. They are facts. We are all, in this room, in his debt. Anaki's mind was a whirlwind. The political landscape he had so carefully calculated had just been turned upside down. His entire invasion plan was predicated on one simple fact: Kumo was crippled, leaderless, and its Jinchuriki were either captured or on the run. But as the Raikage spoke of revival, of a miracle, a nagging, insidious voice echoed in the back of Anaki's mind. A voice from the shadows of his office. They are broken, Anaki. Demoralized. Their legendary pride. Shattered. No, Anaki whispered, his eyes darting back and forth. The logic of the Kages was sound, their united front formidable. But the seed of doubt Tobi had planted was deep, twisting his perception. No. I don't believe it. He slammed his fist onto the table, cracking the iron. Revival? Bringing the dead back to life? Do you take me for a senile fool? It is a fairy tale. A desperate lie concocted by a broken village to hide its weakness. Anaki. Hiruzen warned, his voice sharp. I see through you. Anaki raved, his paranoia seizing control. He pointed a trembling finger at Naruto. This boy. He is just a prop. A scarecrow set up to frighten me. You say he defeated the Rinnegan? Impossible. You say Kumo is strong? Lies. You are all conspiring to protect a corpse because you fear he was strength. You stubborn old mule, A roared, lightning flaring around him. I am standing right here telling you. You are lying to save face. Anaki shrieked, his face red. Kumo is dead. And I will not be deterred by ghost stories and children. The tension in the room didn't snap, it shattered. A lunged forward. Naruto's hand tightened on his sword. But before a single blow could be struck, the air above the center of the table warped. A spiraling vortex spiraled into existence, and a figure materialized, crouching on the table itself. The black cloak. The red clouds. The orange mask. Excellent, Anaki. Tobi's voice chirped, though it carried a dark, mocking undertone. You really are the only one with any sense in this room. Every guard in the room moved instantly. Protect the cage. Daru, Si, Ao, Chojuro, and Naruto all surged forward. Stay back, Tobi commanded, his voice dropping to the deep, earth-shaking timbre of Madara Uchiha. A wave of killing intent, cold and ancient, washed over the room, freezing the younger guards in their tracks. Hiruzen, A, and Mei stood their ground, their eyes locked on the intruder. Tobi, Naruto growled, his golden white aura flaring to life instantly. You have some nerve showing your face here. And you have some nerve still breathing, Nine Tails, Tobi shot back, his single visible eye curving into a smile beneath the mask. He turned his attention to the Tsuchikage, who was staring at him with a mixture of shock and vindication. You see, Anaki? Tobi said, gesturing to the furious Kages surrounding them. They are lying to you. They want you to back down. They want you to ignore the opportunity I gave you. They are terrified that you will finish what Pain started. Anaki looked at Toby, then at the Kijis. The validation from the masked man fed his paranoia perfectly. I knew it, Anaki breathed, his suspicion hardening into certainty. A conspiracy. Precisely, Toby said. He straightened up, addressing the entire room. But the time for secrets is over. You want a war? Fine. He spread his arms wide. I, Madara Uchiha, hereby declare the fourth great ninja war. I will take the tailed beasts. I will complete the moons I plan. And I will not be doing it alone. He placed a gloved hand on Anaki's shoulder. The Tsuchikage stiffened, but he didn't pull away. Toby's earlier genjutsu, subtle and buried deep, flared in sync with Anaki's own greed and fear. Iwagakure stands with the Akatsuki, Toby declared, framing the Tsuchikage before he could even process the words. Together, we will crush this pathetic alliance and reshape the world. What? Kurotsuchi yelled, her eyes wide with horror. Grandfather, no. He's the enemy. Anaki blinked, his mind foggy. I. Come, partner, Toby whispered. Let us prepare your forces. Wait. Naruto screamed, flickering forward, his hand reaching out. But he was too slow. The space around Toby, Anaki, Akatsuchi, and a screaming Kurotsuchi began to warp and twist. This world will end, Naruto Namikaze, Toby's voice echoed as they swirled away. And the next one will belong to me. With a final, sickening schloop, they were gone. The table was empty. The silence that followed was deafening. Mifune, the samurai general, stared at the empty space, his hand trembling on his sword. He took the Tsuchikage. He didn't just take him, Hiruzen said, his voice grave as he looked at the horrified faces of the other Kages. He just stole an entire great nation's military might. The empty space where the Tsuchikage had sat seemed to suck the air out of the room. For a long, frozen moment, the only sound in the vast meeting hall was the rasp of the Raikage's breathing, heavy and ragged with suppressed fury. Then, A exploded. Damn it. He didn't slam the table this time, he obliterated the corner of it with a backhand chop breathed in lightning. Metal shrieked and twisted, flying across the room to embed itself in the stone wall. He took him. Right from under our noses. That masked coward. He didn't just take him, Raikage Dono, Mei Terumi said, her voice dangerously calm as she stared at the spot where Toby had vanished. He turned him. You heard Anaki. He was already listening to the whispers. Toby just gave him the push he wanted. It changes the strategic map, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, his face etched with grim calculation. The Akatsuki has gained the full military infrastructure of the land of Earth. A fortress village, supply lines, and 10,000 disciplined shinobi. But he's desperate, Naruto said, his voice cutting through the rising panic. He stepped forward, his golden white aura fading, but his eyes remaining sharp and analytical. Think about it. Why declare war now? Why grab Anaki in such a rush? Naruto looked at the assembled leaders. Toby is losing. His plan requires all 9 Baijuu. But look at the board. We have Gaara, the 1 tail. We have Yugito, the 2 tails. We have B, the 8 tails. And I have the 9 tails. He held up 4 fingers. That's 4 of the 9, right here in this alliance. Toby? Before today, he only had the 6 tails and the 7 tails. By turning Anaki, he's likely secured Roshi, the 4 tails, and Han, the 5 tails. But the 3 tails. Isabu is gone. I destroyed Yagura. The beast is adrift, reforming. It will take years before it's usable. Naruto lowered his hand, his gaze intense. He only has 4 active Baijuu, the 4, 5, 6, and 7. We have 4, the 1, 2, 8, and 9. It's a stalemate. He knows he can't just walk in and take us, especially not when we're united. So he's starting a war. To weaken us, Hiruzen realized, his eyes widening. He wants to throw the world into chaos. He wants to use Iwa to grind us down, to exhaust our forces and separate the Jinchuriki so he can pick us off one by one. Exactly, Naruto nodded. He's trying to muck up the board because he can't win a straight fight. He wants us tired, desperate, and sloppy. Then we don't give him the chance, A growled, his composure returning, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. We hit him with everything we have. We unite. And we crush him before he can maneuver. The allied shinobi forces, Hiruzen announced, his voice ringing with authority. We will combine our armies. Intelligence, medical, sensors, and combat units. We blend them. No more villages. Just one army. Who leads? Mei asked. Hiruzen looked at A. You will, Raikage Dono. You are the supreme commander. You have the aggression we need. And your brother is a primary target. You will fight harder than any of us. A nodded, a grim determination setting his jaw. Very well. I accept. He looked around the room. We must move fast. I want the main force to assemble at the border of the Land of Frost to defend what's left of Kumo. That is where he will strike first to break our morale. Wait, Hiruzen interjected, his expression tightening. We are missing a piece. Suna. Suna is leaderless, A dismissed. The Kazekage is dead. Gaara is the Kazekage, Naruto corrected. But he stayed behind. He told me he suspected this summit might be a distraction. A way to draw the Kages away while Tobi launched a surprise attack on our villages. He stayed to defend Suna. A distraction, Hiruzen murmured, stroking his beard. If Tobi has Iwa, he has access to the Land of Rain. He could use that as a staging ground to hit Suna or Konoha while we are focused on the north. We need to get word to Gaara immediately. If Suna falls, our western flank is wide open. I'll send a clone, Naruto said. It's faster than a bird. Do it, A commanded. We will split our forces. The main army will hold the line at the Land of Frost to protect the Lightning Country. A second division, led by Kakashi Hatake, will reinforce the border between the Land of Rain and the Land of Earth. We stop them before they can cross. Then it is decided, Mei said. We return to our villages. We marshal our forces. And we meet on the battlefield. Dismissed. Somewhere in the dark recesses of a cavern system deep within the Land of Earth, Tobi stood overlooking a vast, subterranean lake. The air was damp and cold. You seem troubled for a man who just declared a world war, a voice hissed from the shadows. Tobi didn't turn. I am calculating contingencies. The loss of the Rinnegan and the Three Tails has complicated the timeline. From the darkness emerged a figure that should have been dead. Orochimaru of the Sannin, pale and bandaged, but very much alive, stepped into the dim light. He was missing his original body's limbs, having been forced to transfer to a white Zetsu clone he had captured and modified to sustain himself. Kabuto Yakashi stood faithfully behind him. Complications, Orochimaru mused, a serpentine smile playing on his lips. You have Iwa, yes. But the Alliance has 4 Jinchuriki, including the 9 Tails and the 8 Tails. And Anaki's forces, while stubborn, cannot match the combined might of the other 4 nations. You are outnumbered, and outgunned. Tobi turned his single, masked eye toward the Sannin. And I suppose you have come to beg for scraps? I have come to offer a trade, Orochimaru corrected, his golden eyes gleaming. You need power. You need soldiers who do not tire, do not fear, and cannot be killed. You need to tip the scales. Kabuto stepped forward, placing a scroll on the ground. He performed a single-hand seal. Summoning, Edo Tensei. 4 coffins erupted from the stone floor. The lids clattered open, revealing 4 figures with gray, cracking skin and blank eyes. Roshi. Han. Utakata. Fu. The Jinchuriki you have already harvested, Orochimaru said softly. But why let their bodies go to waste? I can bind their souls. You can reseal the beasts you possess back into them. You won't just have tailed beasts, you will have perfect, immortal Jinchuriki under your absolute command. Tobi looked at the coffins. It was a crude solution, but an effective one. It solved the problem of controlling the beasts in the heat of battle. And what is your price, Snake? Tobi asked. Sasuke Uchiha, Orochimaru hissed, his hunger undisguised. I want the boy. When the war is over, he is mine. Tobi was silent for a moment. Then, a dark chuckle escaped his mask. A fair trade. Join me, Orochimaru. Let us show this world a nightmare it cannot wake from. 3 days later, the war began. It didn't start with a single clash, but with 2 massive fronts opening simultaneously. In the south, near the border of the Land of Rain and the Land of Earth, the Alliance's 2nd Division, led by Kakashi Hatake, engaged a massive force of white Zetsu emerging from the underground tunnels. The fighting was brutal, a meat grinder of ninjutsu and biomass. But the main event was in the north. The Land of Frost. Tens of thousands of Alliance shinobi stood shoulder to shoulder on the frozen tundra. At the head of the formation stood the Kages, Mei Terumi, and Hiruzen Sarutobi. Gaara had sent his army, led by Temari, but remained in Suna to guard the rear, trusting Naruto's warning. Standing right at the front were the Alliance's greatest assets, the Jinchuriki. Naruto stood center, his father's white haori flapping in the icy wind. To his left was Killer Bee, rhyming nervously but with 8 swords ready. To his right stood Yugito Ni, her cat-like eyes sharp and predatory, blue fire already licking at her fingertips. Naruto looked out across the frozen plain. He expected to see the ranks of Iwagakure immediately. Instead, he saw a white ocean. What? What is that? A Konoha Chunin whispered, his voice trembling. Emerging from the horizon wasn't a human army. It was a swarming, chittering mass of white, humanoid creatures. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. They moved with a grotesque, fluid gait, their bodies pale and root-like. Zetsu, Naruto whispered, his eyes widening. He's mass-produced them. An army of clones. There's so many, Yugito hissed, her claws extending. Too many to count. It doesn't matter what they are. Ai's voice boomed over the troops, amplified by chakra. They bleed. They die. Today we do not fight for our villages. We fight for our existence. We fight for the future. Charge. Yu-ura-ah. The roar of 80,000 shinobi shook the earth. The allied forces surged forward like a tidal wave. From the other side, the white wave of Zetsu rushed to meet them. Sasuke. B. Yugito. With me, Naruto yelled. He flickered. Golden light exploded from him, the lightning released chakra mode merging with the Kyūbi's cloak to create a blinding beacon. He hit the enemy line first. Planetary Rasengan. He vaporized 100 Zetsu in a single impact. Sasuke was right beside him, Amaterasu flames incinerating a phalanx of white monsters. B and Yugito transformed partially, tails of ink and blue fire bulldozing through the center. The battle was joined. It was chaos. It was noise. It was war. For an hour, it seemed the alliance would hold. The Zetsu were numerous, but weak. Naruto and the Jinchuriki were carving a path of destruction through them. But then, the ground rumbled. From the flanks, behind the Zetsu lines, new shapes emerged. Not white monsters, but disciplined ranks of shinobi clad in red armor. Earth-style, earth flow wave. The ground beneath the alliance's left flank liquefied, sending thousands of Kiri and Kumo shinobi tumbling. It's Iwa. Mei Terumi shouted, unleashing a torrent of lava to counter. Aniki has arrived. The stone ninja poured onto the battlefield, their discipline and heavy jutsu hammering the alliance lines. The battle turned from a slaughter into a desperate struggle. High above the battlefield, floating on a platform of rock, Tobi watched. Beside him stood Orochimaru. They are fighting well, Orochimaru noted, watching the golden flash of Naruto tearing through the Iwa ranks. But they are tiring. The Zetsu and Iwa were merely fodder to drain their stamina. It is time to break their spirit, Tobi said coldly. Play the cards. Orochimaru nodded to Kabuto. Do it. On the battlefield below, the ground rumbled again. Not from the fighting, but from something deeper. Naruto skidded to a halt, sensing a foul, corrupted chakra rising from the earth. Get back! He screamed to the nearby troops. 4 heavy, wooden coffins erupted from the frozen earth directly in front of Naruto's path. The lids crashed down with a heavy thud. Naruto stared. He recognized the chakra signatures immediately. They were twisted, wrong, but unmistakable. Roshi of the lava release. Han of the steam. Utakata of the bubbles. Fu of the 7 tails. The 4 Jinchuriki Tobi had captured. He's reanimated them, Yugito hissed, landing beside Naruto, her face pale. Roshi. Han. Aniki must have killed them to hand over the beasts. He's using them as batteries, Naruto said, his voice cold. He put the beasts back into their dead bodies. As if to confirm it, the 4 Edo Tensei Jinchuriki began to transform. Red chakra bubbled around them, tails sprouting. 4 tails of lava. 5 tails of steam. 6 tails of slime. 7 tails of wind. And behind them, 1 more coffin rose. The lid fell, revealing a short man with a stitched scar across his forehead and a large, hook-ended staff. Yagura. The 4th Mizukage. He doesn't have the 3 tails, Naruto realized, his eyes narrowing. Yagura is just a shell. But a cage-level shell. Orochimaru's voice, amplified by wind chakra, slithered across the battlefield. Naruto-kun. Do you like my new collection? I thought a family reunion was in order. Naruto's golden aura flared, fueled by a cold, hard rage. He looked up at the sky, knowing they were watching. You desecrate their graves, Naruto snarled, his voice a low rumble that carried over the battlefield. You turn them into puppets. He slammed his fists together. I'm going to tear this world apart to find you, Tobi. You and the snake. Naruto's declaration hung in the frozen air, a promise of vengeance that seemed to chill even the unnatural cold of the land of frost. His golden aura, usually a beacon of warmth and hope, had hardened into a corona of pure, searing power. He didn't move, but the ground beneath his feet cracked, spiderweb fissures racing outwards as his chakra pressure spiked. Across the battlefield, the reanimated Jinchuriki stared back with blank, soulless eyes. But as Orochimaru's chakra surged through the control tags, their forms began to twist. The red chakra cloaks bubbling around them thickened, bones and flesh warping as they were forced into their version 2 transformations. Sentimental words, Orochimaru's voice slithered from the sky, amplified by wind chakra. But let us see if you can bring yourself to destroy your own kind. Kill them, Toby commanded. And capture the 9 tails. He has something that belongs to me. The 4 Edo Tensei Jinchuriki moved as one. Roshi, now a hulking beast of molten lava and red chakra, slammed his hands onto the ice. Lava style, scorching stream rock. A tsunami of magma erupted from the frozen ground, hissing and steaming as it roared toward the alliance lines. Han, the 5 tails Jinchuriki, engaged his steam armor. With a shriek like a dying train, he rocketed forward, a red blur of superheated vapor and brute force, aiming directly for Naruto. Utakata blew a stream of bubbles that floated lazily across the battlefield, beautiful and deadly, each one filled with volatile acid and explosive chakra. And Fu, the 7 tails, took to the sky, her insect wings buzzing with a deafening drone as she rained down a glittery, blinding powder that disrupted chakra sensing. Scatter, A roared, his own lightning armor flaring. Don't let them group up. The alliance forces broke formation, disciplined chaos taking over as squads moved to counter the onslaught. Mei Terumi stepped forward, weaving signs with blinding speed. Water style, water dragon jutsu. A massive dragon of water rose to meet Roshi's lava, the collision creating a blinding cloud of steam that engulfed the center of the battlefield. Naruto didn't look at the others. His eyes were locked on the incoming red blur of Han. Steam style, erupting propulsion fist, Han roared, or rather, the beast within him roared, as he threw a punch that could shatter a mountain. Naruto didn't dodge. He stepped into it. His golden chakra arm manifested in a split second, catching Han's fist. The impact created a shockwave that cleared the snow for 50 meters. Naruto gritted his teeth, feeling the immense, boiling heat of the 5 tails chakra. I'm sorry, Han, Naruto whispered. But I'm not going to let him use you. With a roar, Naruto twisted his body. He didn't just throw Han, he slammed him. Using the steam ninja's own momentum, he drove him into the ice with enough force to create a crater, pinning him there with 4 more chakra arms. B. Yugito. Now. Killer B and Yugito didn't hesitate. B, in his full 8 tails form, tentacle lariated the airborne Fu, slamming her out of the sky. Yugito, a blue fire streak of feline grace, intercepted Utakata, her claws tearing through his bubbles before they could detonate. Sealing team, Hiruzen shouted from the rear command post. Move in. Bind them while they're down. A squad of elite alliance sealers, specialists from Konoha and Suna, rushed forward from the rear lines, unrolling massive scrolls. But just as they approached Han, the steam ninja's body began to glow. Too slow, Toby whispered from his perch. Boom. Han detonated. It wasn't a suicide explosion, it was a tailed beast bomb, fired point blank from his chest. Naruto reacted on pure instinct. He expanded his chakra cloak, wrapping it around the sealing team and flinging them back. He took the full force of the blast. He was sent skidding back hundreds of feet, his golden cloak flickering but holding. He dug his heels in, carving deep trenches in the ice, finally coming to a stop. He panted, smoke rising from his shoulders. He's not just controlling them, Naruto growled, his eyes narrowing. He's weaponizing their instability. He doesn't care if he destroys the bodies. We need to disrupt his control, Sasuke said, appearing beside him in a blur of speed. His 3 Tomoe Sharingan spun rapidly, tracking the flow of chakra between Toby and the puppets. He's relaying commands through the chakra receivers embedded in them. If we can sever that link. Easier said than done, Naruto replied. Suddenly, a massive coral club smashed into the ground where they stood. They leapt apart just in time. Standing there was Yagura, the former Mizukage. He didn't have the 3 tails chakra, but he was still a cage-level shinobi with infinite chakra regeneration and a thirst for blood. I'll handle him, Sasuke stated, his kusanagi blade humming with lightning. He's a cage, Sasuke, Naruto warned. And I am an Uchiha, Sasuke replied coldly. Sasuke charged. Yagura spun his hook-ended staff, creating a mirror of water. Water style, water mirror jutsu. A perfect reflection of Sasuke emerged from the mirror, clashing with him sword for sword. Sasuke didn't panic. He analyzed. The reflection mimicked his moves, but it couldn't mimic his mind. Sasuke feinted a high strike, then dropped low, channeling lightning into his feet for a burst of speed that the reflection, bound by the mirror's angle, couldn't match. He shattered the mirror with a Chidori-infused kick and slashed Yagura across the chest. The wound healed instantly. Paper debris swirled and reformed Yagura's body. Annoying, Sasuke muttered. Yagura countered, unleashing a barrage of coral spikes that tracked Sasuke's movements. Sasuke wove through them, his Sharingan predicting the trajectory, but the sheer volume was overwhelming. He was forced onto the defensive, backing up. Fire style, Dragon Flame Jutsu. Sasuke breathed fire along the wires he had scattered during his retreat, trapping Yagura in a cage of flame. Yagura simply walked through it, his Edo Tensei body regenerating the burn damage as he moved. He raised his staff, preparing a massive water shockwave. Sasuke braced himself. He needed a bigger opening. He prepared to use Kirin, but the sky wasn't prepped. Suddenly, a massive fireball, blue and intense, slammed into Yagura, vaporizing his upper torso. Fire style, Great Fire Annihilation. Sasuke looked back. Standing there, clad in full battle armor with the Uchiha fan crest on his back, was Fugaku Uchiha. His arms were crossed, his expression stern. Beside him stood Itachi, his Anbu mask removed, his Mangekyo Sharingan spinning lazily. "Father? Itachi?" Sasuke breathed. "You were backing up, Sasuke," Fugaku criticized, though his tone wasn't harsh. "An Uchiha does not retreat. We regroup. We are here to assist," Itachi said softly, stepping up beside his brother. "The alliance needs the front line held." Yagura reformed, looking annoyed. "Let us show you how we handle Kage," Fugaku said. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when they snapped open, the pattern had changed. The Mangekyo Sharingan. "Father. You have it too?" Sasuke asked, stunned. "I have led this clan through 2 wars, Fugaku stated simply. "Do not underestimate me." A spectral, dark orange ribcage erupted around Fugaku, his Susanoo. It was dense, heavier than Itachi's. It grew rapidly, forming a skeletal warrior armed with a massive spear. "Itachi, cover his blind spot." "Sasuke, drive him into my range," Fugaku commanded. "Right," the brothers said in unison. Sasuke moved, emboldened by his family. He darted in, using Chidori Stream to paralyze Yagura's movements for a split second. Itachi followed up, casting Tsukiyomi, not to torture, but to disrupt Yagura's time perception for a single second. In that second, Fugaku's Susanoo thrust its spear. It didn't just stab, it sealed. The spear tip was etched with Fuinjutsu formulas. Yagura was pinned to the frozen earth, the sealing script spreading across his reanimated body. "Sealing team." Fugaku barked. "Take him." The alliance sealers rushed in, wrapping Yagura in cloth and tags before he could break Fugaku's hold. Sasuke stood with his father and brother, breathing heavily. For the first time, he wasn't chasing them. He was fighting alongside them. But the victory was short-lived. The ground began to rumble. Not from a jutsu, but from the march of thousands. From the eastern flank, a massive dust cloud rose. "Reinforcements?" a Konoha ninja asked hopefully. Naruto, sensing the chakra, whipped his head around. "No. That's not us." Emerging from the snowy mist were the disciplined, red-armored ranks of Iwagakure. Thousands of stone shinobi. Aniki made it. A Kumo ninja cheered. "The Tsuchikage is here." "No." Naruto screamed. "Get back. They're not helping." It was too late. Earth style, earth flow wave. The ground beneath the alliance's left flank liquefied. Thousands of Kumo and Kiri shinobi lost their footing, sliding into deep pits. "Fire!" an Iwa commander shouted. A volley of kunai and earth spears rained down on the confused alliance troops. They turned, roared, watching his men fall. "That treacherous old fence sitter." High above, Toby laughed. "And so the board tilts." He turned his gaze to the chaos. The alliance was in disarray, attacked from the front by Zetsu and Jinchuriki, and from the flank by Iwa. "Now," Toby said. "It is time to end this." He warped away, vanishing into his dimension. Down in the valley, Naruto had pinned Son Goku again, his golden avatar wrestling the beast. "Now, sealing team," Naruto shouted. But before they could move, a vortex opened in the air above Naruto's head. Toby materialized, falling toward Naruto's exposed head within the avatar. "I'll be taking you," Toby said, his hand reaching out, not to kill, but to extract. "And the eyes you stole." Naruto looked up, his eyes widening. He couldn't move the avatar fast enough. Clang! A massive, lightning-wreathed fist slammed into Toby, sending him flying back before he could touch Naruto. The Raikage, stood on the avatar's shoulder, smoke rising from his arm. You forgot something, Toby, roared. He's not just a Jinchuriki. He's a Kumo shinobi. Toby phased through the ice, reappearing a safe distance away. He dusted off his cloak. Raikage. You are persistent. And you are annoying, a second voice said. Mei Terumi landed beside Naruto's avatar, lava dripping from her lips. You didn't think we'd let our golden boy fight alone, did you? Toby looked at the three of them, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, the Raikage, and the Mizukage. 3-on-1, Toby mused. And I cannot summon the statue. Yet. He knew he needed the Rinnegan back to control the Geto Mazo properly. Very well. We will do this the hard way. He raised his hand, and the remaining Edo Tensei Jinchuriki, Roshi, Han, Utakata, and Fu, converged on his position, their chakra flaring as they prepared to unleash their tailed beast bombs simultaneously. I don't need the statue to destroy you, Toby said. I have the power of 4 beasts right here. Naruto's golden avatar roared, matching the intensity. The real battle for the Baijuu had begun. The 4-tailed beast bombs began to form, dark spheres of concentrated destruction hovering in the mouths of the reanimated Jinchuriki. Toby stood amidst them, a conductor of annihilation. This is the end of your alliance, Toby declared. Fire! Not on my watch, Naruto roared. His golden Kurama avatar opened its mouth. But instead of firing a single bomb, it split its chakra. 4 massive arms erupted from the avatar's back, each hand holding a swirling Rasengan the size of a house. Planetary Rasengan barrage. Naruto didn't just fire back, he physically slammed the Rasengans into the incoming beast bombs. The collision point wasn't a beam struggle, it was a chaotic, multi-point detonation that shattered the valley floor. A and Mei were forced to retreat as the shockwave flattened everything within a mile. When the smoke cleared, Naruto's avatar was flickering, damaged but standing. The 4 Edo Jinchuriki were blown back, regenerating from the damage. He blocked 4 at once? Toby muttered, annoyed. The boy has grown troublesome. I'm not letting you take them, Naruto shouted, his avatar pointing a massive finger at Toby. And you're not getting these eyes back. Toby's single visible eye narrowed. We shall see. He moved. Toby didn't have the Geto Mazo to hide behind, so he used his intangibility to weave through the battlefield. He appeared behind Naruto's avatar, phasing through the golden chakra to reach the boy inside. Kamui. Naruto felt the suction. He tried to dodge, but Toby's hand was inches away. Water style, water dragon bullet. Mei Terumi interfered again, her dragon forcing Toby to phase. Followed up with a lightning chop that would have decapitated anyone else. You cage our pests, Toby growled, warping away. We are the shield, roared. Naruto. Focus on the Jinchuriki. We will keep the masked man off your back. Got it. Naruto turned his attention back to the 4 beasts. Kurama, we need to sever the connection. Orochimaru's control tags are buried deep, but Toby is using the chakra receivers to sync them. Aim for the black rods, Kurama advised. Just like with pain. Naruto charged. He engaged Roshi and Han simultaneously, his avatar grappling with the lava and steam beasts. It was a brawl of titans. Meanwhile, on the southern front, the situation had gone from bad to apocalyptic. The Alliance's 4th Division, led by Kakashi, had been holding against the Zetsu and the swordsmen. But then, the second coffin had opened. Madara Uchiha stood on a rocky pinnacle, looking down at the battlefield with boredom. Beside him floated Anaki, who had abandoned the pretense of fighting and joined his new master. Is this it? Madara asked. Is this the best the shinobi of this era can offer? They are persistent, Anaki grunted. But weak. Let us test them, Madara said. He wove a single sign. Heavenly obstacle quaking star. The sky darkened. The clouds parted. And a meteor, massive enough to crush the entire division, descended. What is that? Asuna ninja screamed. It's a god, another whispered. Hold the line, Kakashi shouted, though his voice trembled. We can't. Oh, shut up, Kakashi. A massive, white paper dragon spiraled down from the clouds, slamming into the meteor. Millions of paper tags detonated. It didn't destroy the rock, but it cracked it, diverting its path slightly. Then, a wave of sand, lighter, faster than Gaara's, rose up to cushion the impact. Madara raised an eyebrow. Oh? Konan descended, her paper wings spread. And beside her, carried on a cloud of sand, was. Raza? Aniki gasped. The fourth Kazekage? But you're dead. Raza, reanimated but clearly not under Tobi's control, folded his arms. I was. Until that snake Orochimaru brought me back to fight. But it seems. My son's mother had a better seal than he anticipated. Kushina's work on Gaara's seal had given her insight into Suna's Fuinjutsu. When she learned Orochimaru had killed Raza, she had prepared a counter seal, which Gaara had unknowingly carried. When Raza was reanimated nearby, the seal activated, overriding Orochimaru's control tag. You are fighting for the Alliance? Madara asked, amused. A dead cage against a legend? I am fighting for my son's future, Raza stated. Something I failed to do in life. And I, Konan said, landing beside him, am fighting for a dream you tried to kill. Touching, Madara sneered. But futile. What will you do about the second one? A second meteor crashed through the clouds, slamming into the first. The impact was cataclysmic. The shockwave leveled the southern front. When the dust settled, Madara stood untouched. Aniki floated beside him. But the Alliance wasn't dead. A golden dome covered the survivors. Naruto stood there, panting, his hand pressed against the barrier. He had sent a clone. A single clone with enough chakra to shield them all. You. Madara looked at the clone. The Nine Tails. You're Madara, the Naruto clone said, glaring. The real one. I am, Madara confirmed. And that masked man has failed to retrieve my eyes. Madara looked north. He could sense the battle. He could sense his eyes, the Rinnegan, sealed away on Naruto's real body. Aniki, Madara commanded. We are going north. I will retrieve my eyes myself. But the army here. Aniki started. Leave them to the Zetsu, Madara said, his Susanoo forming wings. The real battle is with the boy. Madara took flight, heading straight for the northern front. Back in the north, Naruto, the real one, felt the clone dispel. He felt the terror of Madara's power. He's coming, Naruto whispered. Who? A asked, smashing Tobi back. Madara, Naruto said. The real Madara. He's coming here. And he wants the eyes. Tobi paused. He is impatient. This is bad, Mei said. We can barely handle Tobi and the Jinchuriki. If Madara joins, we lose, Naruto finished. He looked at Tobi. He looked at the sealing jar on his chest. I have to go, Naruto said. What? A roared. I have to take the eyes away, Naruto said. If Madara gets them, he summons the Geto Mazo for real. He becomes the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. It's game over. Where will you go? Mei asked. Uzushio, Naruto said. Mom is there. The barrier is up. It's the only place he can't just warp into. You'll be trapping yourself, Tobi pointed out. I'll be buying us time, Naruto countered. Mei. Hold them off. Don't let Tobi follow me. Go, A shouted. We will hold the line. Naruto didn't hesitate. He turned and ran, flickering away from the battlefield, heading for the coast. Tobi tried to follow, but A and Mei, desperate and furious, launched a suicidal assault to pin him down. You are not going anywhere, A roared, sacrificing his arm to punch Tobi's mask, cracking it. Naruto ran. He ran across the frozen ocean, his heart pounding. He could feel Madara's chakra closing in from the south. It was a race. He reached the whirlpools. He bit his thumb, slamming his hand onto the water. Open. The whirlpools parted. Naruto shot through the barrier. He landed on the docks of Uzushio. It was quiet. The construction was half finished. Naruto? Kushina stood there, surprised. She had felt the barrier drop. Mom, Naruto gasped, falling to his knees. Madara. He's coming. He wants the eyes. Kushina looked at his chest, then at the horizon. She felt the oppressive, godlike chakra approaching. Then we prepare, Kushina said, her face hardening. He wants a war? We'll give him a siege. She slammed her hands together. Uzumaki barrier, adamantine dome. A golden barrier, thicker and stronger than anything Konoha had ever produced, rose over the entire island. Seconds later, Madara Uchiha arrived. He hovered outside the barrier, his Susanoo active. He struck the dome. It didn't break. Madara narrowed his eyes. Uzumaki. You're not getting in, Madara, Naruto shouted from the docks, his voice amplified. We shall see, Madara said. He sat down in the air, crossing his legs. I have time. But do your friends? He pointed back toward the mainland. The war wasn't over. It had just become a siege. And while Naruto was safe, the alliance was now facing Tobi and the Zetsu army without their strongest warrior. The northern front had become a crucible of elemental destruction. The four reanimated Jinchuriki, Roshi, Han, Utakata, and Fu, had fully transformed, unleashing the raw, cataclysmic power of the tailed beasts upon the alliance lines. Lava, steam, acid, and blinding scales created a chaotic storm that threatened to break the alliance's formation. Tobi, phasing through attacks with maddening ease, orchestrated the assault, keeping the Raikage and Mizukage on the defensive. "We can't get close," Mei Terumi shouted, creating a wall of water to block a glob of acidic sludge. "Their regeneration is instantaneous. Then we burn them down until there's nothing left to regenerate," A roared, his lightning armor sparking as he prepared another charge. "Hold your position, Raikage," a deep, authoritative voice cut through the noise. Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan and commander of the Konoha military police, stepped onto the front line. He was not an Edo Tensei, he was flesh and blood, clad in battle armor, his eyes spinning with the Mangekyo Sharingan. He had arrived with the main reinforcement wave, and his presence commanded instant respect. Beside him, a cloud of gold dust swirled, condensing into the form of Raza, the fourth Kazekage. He had been reanimated by Orochimaru, but the suppression seal Kushina had placed on Gari years ago had reacted to his chakra, overriding the control tag. He was dead, but he was fighting for his son. "I never thought I'd fight beside an Uchiha," Raza remarked dryly, his gold dust rising to counter the Four Tails lava. "Desperate times," Fugaku replied curtly. He looked at his sons, Sasuke and Itachi, who were catching their breath nearby. "Sasuke," Fugaku commanded, his voice stern. "You and I will hold the line against the beasts. Your Susanoo is developing, use it to contain their blast radius." "Understood, father," Sasuke said, his resolve hardening. Fugaku then turned to Itachi. He didn't speak loudly, but his intent was projected clearly. "Itachi. This battle is a distraction. The beasts are merely weapons. The hand wielding them is hidden." Itachi nodded, his eyes already scanning the horizon. "Orochimaru. He is the anchor for the reanimation," Fugaku said quietly. "Tobi is the hammer, but the snake is the one keeping these immortals on the field. Find him. Silence him." "I will," Itachi promised. He didn't waste time. He dissolved into a flock of crows, bypassing the chaos of the front line and heading deep into the rocky hinterlands where the chakra threads of the Edo Tensei originated. "Now," Fugaku said, turning back to the rampaging beasts. An enormous, spectral avatar, an orange-hued Susanoo, erupted around him, drawing a massive blade. "Let us show them the power of the Uchiha." On the island of Uzushio, the air was heavy with the weight of a gathering storm. Inside the golden adamantine barrier, thousands of Naruto's shadow clones sat in perfect stillness, statues of meditation gathering natural energy. In the center of the formation sat the real Naruto, his eyes closed, the orange pigmentation of the sage marking his face. He was a battery, charging up for a fight against a god. Outside the dome, the sky cracked. Madara Uchiha, bored with the stalemate, rained meteoric blows against the barrier with his perfect Susanoo. The island shook, dust falling from the newly reconstructed buildings, but the Uzumaki seals held. "Stubborn," Madara muttered, floating above the dome. "But everything breaks eventually." Inside the barrier, Naruto's eyes snapped open. The pupils were across, the vertical slit of the fox bisecting the horizontal bar of the toad. He stood up and walked to his mother. Kushina was sweating, her hands pressed against the barrier control seal, pouring her chakra into maintaining the defense. "Mom," Naruto said softly. Kushina looked at him. She saw the resolve in his eyes, the same look Minato had the night he died. "Sochi. Are you ready?" "I am," Naruto said. He reached into his flak jacket and pulled out a heavy, sealed preservation jar. Inside floated the Rinnegan eyes, Nagato's eyes. "Take these," Naruto said, pressing the jar into her hands. "Keep them safe. No matter what happens, Madara cannot get these." Kushina's hands trembled slightly as she took the jar. "You're going out there." "I have to," Naruto said, looking up at the distortion in the barrier where Madara was striking. "If I stay here, he'll eventually crack it. I have to drive him back. I have to take the fight to him." He turned to the army of clones. "I'm leaving them here. As I run out of Sage Chakra, I'll dispel them one by one to recharge. It'll keep me in Sage mode longer than usual." "Naruto," Kushina grabbed his arm. "Come back to me." Naruto grinned, a flash of the old, prankster boy shining through the warrior. "I'm an Uzumaki, Mom." We're too stubborn to die. He turned to the edge of the barrier. Kurama. Let's go. Time to teach this ghost a lesson. Naruto stepped through the barrier. Madara paused mid-swing. He looked down at the small, golden figure standing on the water's surface. Finally, Madara said, his voice amplified by Susanoo. The mouse leaves its hole. I'm not a mouse, Madara, Naruto shouted back, his chakra flaring so bright it turned the ocean gold. I'm the one who's going to send you back to the grave. Show me, Madara laughed, swinging his colossal sword. Naruto didn't dodge. Frog kata. He punched the empty air. A massive wave of natural energy slammed into the Susanoo blade, shattering the spectral steel. Madara's eyebrows rose. Senjutsu? Naruto didn't answer. He flickered, appearing instantly at the chest of the Susanoo. Sage art, massive Rasengan. He slammed a sphere of energy the size of a house into the ribcage. The impact sent Madara skidding backwards across the ocean, kicking up tsunamis in his wake. The Battle of Legends had begun. Deep in a limestone cavern 5 miles from the battlefield, Orochimaru sat before a stone altar, moving stones on a map like a general. Kabuto stood behind him, smirking. The alliance is breaking, Kabuto noted. Fugaku Uchiha is strong, but he cannot hold back 4-tailed beasts forever. Indeed, Orochimaru hissed. But I sense a disturbance. From the shadows of the cave entrance, a figure emerged. Itachi Uchiha. I see you have not lost your touch for hiding in holes, Orochimaru, Itachi said, his Mangekyo spinning slowly. Orochimaru stiffened. Itachi-kun. I wondered when you would arrive. The war ends now, Itachi stated. Release the Edo Tensei. Make me, Orochimaru sneered. Kabuto. Kabuto engaged his Dragon Sage mode, but Itachi was already moving. It wasn't a battle of brute force, it was a battle of the mind. Itachi cast a genjutsu. Kabuto countered. But Itachi wasn't aiming for victory, he was aiming for control. He activated his Susanoo, the Totsuka blade forming in its spectral hand. You cannot kill me, Orochimaru yelled, summoning a massive snake. I am immortal. There are fates worse than death, Itachi replied calmly. The Totsuka blade pierced the snake, sealing it instantly. He turned the blade on Orochimaru. Pinned against the wall by the spectral sword, Orochimaru realized he couldn't move. His chakra was being sucked away. Release the jutsu, Itachi commanded, his eyes boring into the Sannin's soul. Or spend eternity in a drunken stupor inside the gourd. It was a bluff, Itachi needed him to perform the seals, but Orochimaru, pragmatic to a fault, knew when he was beaten. Fine, Orochimaru rasped. You win this round. Under Itachi's Sharingan compulsion, Orochimaru formed the seals. Rat. Ox. Monkey. Tiger. Dragon. Boar. Release. On the northern battlefield, a pillar of light erupted from Raza. What? Gaara, who had been fighting nearby, looked up. Father? It seems. The caster has been stopped, Raza said, his body beginning to glow and flake away into ash. He looked at his son. Protect the village, Gaara. You have surpassed me. Across the field, the 4-tailed beast Jinchuriki stopped their rampage. Their Baijuu cloaks receded. Their souls were being called back. The Edo Tensei is broken, A shouted triumphantly. But Fugaku Uchiha did not fade. He stood firm, alive and breathing. Do not celebrate yet, he roared. The enemy is still here. Tobi stood alone, surrounded by the alliance. The Jinchuriki were gone. His army was stalling. So, Tobi muttered. The snake failed. Over the ocean, Madara Uchiha felt the pull of the afterlife tugging at his soul. His Susanoo flickered. The reanimation jutsu has been released? Madara murmured, blocking a punch from Naruto. Impressive work by your friends. It's over, Madara, Naruto yelled, a Rasen shuriken spinning in his hand. Go back to being dead. Madara chuckled. A dark, sinister aura flared around him. There is one loophole in the Edo Tensei, he said calmly. If the reanimated soul knows the seals. He wove the hand signs rapidly. Ram. Snake. Tiger. He can sever the contract. The light around Madara intensified, then snapped. The pull of the afterlife vanished. He remained. An immortal, unkillable ghost with infinite chakra, now answering to no one. Now, Madara said, his eyes locking onto Naruto. I have no master. And I have no limits. He looked toward the mainland. This ocean is too empty. Let us take this to the main stage. Madara turned and flew toward the coast, ignoring Naruto. Hey, Naruto roared, chasing him. The battle migrated. They crossed the miles in seconds, crashing onto the coastline of the Land of Frost, right in the middle of the Alliance army. The shockwave of their landing flattened the forest. Naruto skidded to a halt, panting, as Madara landed gracefully atop a rock formation. Tobi warped to Madara's side. "You took your time," Tobi said. "I was testing the boy," Madara replied. "He is adequate. The Jinchuriki are gone," Tobi informed him. "We lost the beasts." "Temporary setback," Madara said. He looked at Naruto. He looked at the sealing jar he sensed on the boy. No, wait. The jar wasn't on the boy. Madara's eyes narrowed. He realized the Rinnegan weren't here. They were still on the island. "No matter," Madara said. "I can still summon the vessel." "You can't," Naruto shouted. "You don't have the real eyes. You can't summon the Geto Mazo without a Rinnegan." Madara smiled. It was a terrifying expression. "You think these fake eyes are useless? They are a pale imitation, yes. But I am Madara Uchiha." He bit his thumb and slammed his hand onto the ground. He poured a colossal, impossible amount of chakra into the summoning seal, enough to force the laws of physics to bend. Summoning jutsu. The earth split. It groaned and shrieked. And from the depths, the Geto Mazo erupted. It wasn't the full, flesh and blood statue. It was spectral, translucent, forced into existence by sheer will and Edo Tensei power, but it was solid enough. And inside it, the chakra of the beasts Tobi had collected. The 4, 5, 6, and 7 tails. They were still trapped within the vessel. "It is here," Madara declared. From the east, a rumbling sound grew louder. The Iwa army arrived. 10,000 strong, led by Aniki, who arrived next to Madara and Tobi. They marched onto the field, forming ranks behind them. But as the stone ninja looked at their leaders, a masked terrorist, a reanimated ghost, and a screaming demonic statue, and then looked across the field at the united flags of Kumo, Konoha, Kiri, Suna, and the samurai. They hesitated. "This isn't right," an Iwa Chunin muttered, looking at the Geto Mazo. "We're fighting alongside that?" "Silence," Madara commanded. "You are here to conquer. Do not think. Fight." But the doubt had set in. The Iwa army stood still, caught between orders and morality. Naruto stepped forward. He wasn't in his avatar anymore. He stood as a man, flanked by Fugaku, A, Mei, Gaara, B, and Sasuke. "You see them, Madara?" Naruto called out. "Even your allies know you're wrong. You're all alone." Madara looked at the hesitating army. He sneered. "I don't need allies. I need a battlefield." He clapped his hands. The Geto Mazo roared. "Come, Naruto," Madara said. "Let us finish this." The roar of the Geto Mazo was a physical weight, a wall of sound that flattened the waves and shook the earth beneath the Iwa army's feet. The demonic statue lunged, its spectral, translucent fist crashing down with the force of a falling mountain. "Kurama," Naruto yelled. He didn't dodge. He didn't weave a sign. A massive, golden arm of pure chakra erupted from his back, expanding instantly to match the size of the Mazo's limb. Boom! The collision cleared the sky of clouds for 10 miles. The ocean buckled, creating a crater of dry land in the water for a split second before the sea rushed back in with a roar. Naruto held the statue back, his feet digging furrows into the rock, his golden coat blazing like a second sun. He stopped it. An Iwa Chunin whispered, his weapon lowering. He stopped the demon statue. "Don't just stare," A roared, lightning exploding around him. "Attack while the brat has it pinned." The Raikage didn't wait. He vanished, a streak of blue light. Liger bomb. A slammed into the Mazo's chest, his lightning-wreathed body acting as a piercing spear. The statue groaned, stumbling back, its spectral form flickering under the assault. The Hachibi is here to play. Tentacles out, gonna ruin your day." Killer Bee rapped, transforming fully into the 8 tails. He tackled the Mazo's legs, wrapping his tentacles around them and heaving with the strength of a mountain, toppling the giant statue into the churning surf. High above the chaos, Madara Uchiha floated, his arms crossed, his Susanoo hovering around him like a dark god. He looked down at the coordinated assault with a sneer of cold amusement. "Impressive pets," Madara muttered. "But mere distractions." He turned his eyes to the real threat. Not the beasts, but the Uchiha standing below. Fugaku Uchiha stood firm, his own orange Susanoo fully formed, armed with its sealing spear. Beside him, Sasuke's purple Susanoo was manifesting, and Skeletal Archer drawing a massive bow. An Uchiha leading the village police. Madara's voice amplified, booming over the battlefield. How far we have fallen. You serve the Senjus will like a dog, Fugaku. I serve the village that my clan built. Fugaku retorted, his Mangekyu spinning wildly. Sasuke. Aim for the head. Right. Sasuke released the arrow. It was wreathed in black Amaterasu flames, a projectile of unquenchable fire. Madara didn't move. His Susanoo simply grew. It expanded, shifting from the ribcage to the armored warrior, and then it kept growing. It towered over the battlefield, eclipsing the sun. The perfect Susanoo. A titan of blue chakra that made even the Geto Mazo look small. It drew a sword the size of a skyscraper and swung. The Amaterasu arrow was swatted aside like a twig. The shockwave from the sword swing sliced the top off a nearby mountain range and sent a hurricane-force wind tearing through the alliance ranks. This is the power of a god, Mei Terumi gasped, struggling to keep her footing. No, Naruto said, landing beside her. His golden mode was flickering, the strain of holding back the Mazo taking its toll. It's just a big target. He looked at the hesitating Iwa army. They were terrified. They were frozen between the godlike power of Madara and the defiance of the alliance. Anaki. Naruto's voice cut through the wind, amplified by Kurama's chakra. He pointed directly at the Tsuchikage, who was hovering near Tobi, looking down at the destruction with conflicted eyes. Is this what you wanted, old man? Naruto shouted. Look at him. He doesn't care about Iwa. He doesn't care about your dominance. He just cut the top off your own mountains. He's going to destroy everything, and he's using you to do it. Anaki flinched. He looked at the sheared mountain peaks, landmarks of his own country. He looked at his soldiers, huddled and fearful. And he looked at Tobi. The boy speaks nonsense, Tobi said, his voice dangerous. Order them to attack, Anaki. Crush the alliance. Anaki looked at the masked man. He felt the insidious whisper of the genjutsu in the back of his mind, the push to obey, to conquer. But then he looked down at the battlefield. He saw the Raikage fighting beside the Mizukage. He saw the Uchiha fighting for Konoha. He saw Gaara protecting his men. And he saw Naruto Namikaze, a boy who had saved a village he owed nothing to, standing against a monster. What is your will, Anaki? The Tsuchikage asked himself. To be a king of ashes? Or a Tsuchikage of stone? Anaki's hand trembled. He floated lower, positioning himself between his army and the alliance. Grandfather, Kurotsuchi yelled from the Iwa ranks. What are you doing? Anaki took a deep breath. He clasped his hands together. A white cube of transparent energy formed between his palms. Dust style. Tobi turned, his eye widening behind the mask. You wouldn't dare. I am Anaki of the both scales. The old man roared, the genjutsu shattering under the sheer weight of his stubborn pride. And I do not kneel to ghosts. He spun, aiming not at the alliance, but at the Geto Mazo trying to rise from the ocean. Atomic dismantling jutsu. A massive beam of white light shot from his hands, enveloping the statue's left arm. There was no explosion. The arm simply ceased to exist, disintegrated at a molecular level. The Iwa army gasped. Their cage had turned. Iwa shinobi, Anaki bellowed, his voice cracking with age and fury. We have been deceived. The masked man is not our ally. He is the enemy of the world. Today, we do not fight for territory. We fight for the stone. We fight with the alliance. A roar went up from the 10,000 soldiers in red armor. It was a roar of relief, of clarity. Kill the Madara. Someone screamed. The Iwa army charged. Not at Naruto, but past him, launching a massive volley of Earth-style jutsu at the perfect Susanoo. Earth-style, mountain sandwich. Hundreds of voices cried out. Two colossal slabs of rock rose from the earth, slamming into Madara's Susanoo from both sides, attempting to crush it. Madara laughed. It was a sound of pure joy. Excellent, he shouted, forcing his Susanoo to push the mountains apart. A dance. Finally, a dance worth dying for. Tobi, seeing his army turn, cursed. The old fool broke the conditioning. He didn't do it alone, a voice whispered in Tobi's ear. Tobi phased instantly, a kunai slicing through the space where his head had been. Minato Namikaze? No. It was Naruto. He had moved so fast Tobi hadn't even tracked him. Naruto stood where Tobi had been, his eyes slitted, the cross pupil active. You lost your army, Tobi, Naruto said cold. Now you lose the war. You assume I need an army, Tobi spat. He slammed his hand onto the ground. Summoning jutsu. Nothing happened. Tobi froze. Looking for something? A new voice called out. From the tree line, a figure emerged. Itachi Uchiha. He held a scroll in his hand, and his Mangekyo was spinning. The contract with the 7 swordsmen. The contract with the White Zetsu reserves. I have sealed them, Itachi said calmly. While you were busy playing general, I was busy cleaning up your mess. Itachi. Toby growled. You bastard. Look who's speaking, Itachi replied. The board was set. Madara against the 5 Kage and the entire alliance. Naruto, B, and Yugito against the Geto Mazo. And Toby. Toby was now alone, facing Itachi, Kakashi, and Guy, who had just arrived with the reinforcements. Naruto. Kushina's voice rang out from the island, amplified by a seal. Naruto looked back. The golden dome over Uzushio was pulsing. The seal is ready, she shouted. Bring the statue to the barrier. We'll lock it down. You heard her, Naruto yelled to B and Yugito. Drag that ugly thing to the island. Yo, let's go. B wrapped his tentacles around the Mazo's remaining arm. Heave ho, don't be slow. Yugito, in full 2 tails form, slammed into the Mazo's back, pushing it toward the barrier. Madara, Naruto shouted, turning his attention back to the giant blue samurai. Your toy is leaving. Madara looked down. Humph. You think you can seal the vessel? He raised his sword again. Then I shall simply cut the island in half. He swung. The blow was aimed not at the army, but at Uzushio itself. No. Naruto screamed. He launched himself into the air. He knew he couldn't stop it with strength. The blade was too big. The force was too great. He needed something else. He clapped his hands together. Wood style, deep forest emergence. Roots the size of redwoods exploded from the ocean floor, tangling around the Susanoo's blade, slowing it down, absorbing its chakra. Madara's eyes widened in genuine shock. Wood style? You possess the cells of Hashirama? I possess a lot of things you don't know about. Naruto grunted, the strain causing blood to trickle from his nose. He didn't have Hashirama's cells. But he had the vitality of an Uzumaki, the chakra of the 9 tails, and the knowledge of the natural energy that fueled life itself. He was forcing the life in the ocean floor to grow. It wasn't true wood style. It was sage art, creation. The roots held the blade for a second. Just a second. But it was enough. Particle style, atomic dismantling jutsu. Aniki, flying at full speed, fired a beam point blank into the Susanoo's sword, shattering the blade before it could break through Naruto's roots. Good job, brat, Aniki yelled, panting. Thanks, old man, Naruto shouted back. He landed on the water, his chakra flaring again. Now, he roared to the alliance. Everyone. Hit him with everything you've got. 10,000 shinobi fired. Fire, water, lightning, earth, wind. A rainbow of destruction slammed into Madara Uchiha. For a moment, the legend disappeared under the weight of the world. The elemental barrage was a storm of biblical proportions. Fire, water, lightning, earth, and wind converged on a single point, a kaleidoscope of destruction meant to erase a god. The explosion swallowed the coastline. The ocean boiled. The ground turned to glass. For a long, breathless moment, the alliance watched the smoke, hoping, praying that the legend of Madara Uchiha had been exaggerated. Then, the smoke swirled. It wasn't blown away by the wind. It was inhaled. Standing in the center of the devastation, the perfect Susanoo was gone. In its place stood Madara, his armor untouched, his hands held out to the sides. A translucent, spherical barrier of chakra surrounded him, the predipath of the Rinnegan. He had absorbed it all. Too much chakra, Madara said, dusting off his shoulder as the barrier dissipated. It lacks flavor. A chaotic mess of conflicting natures. He looked up at the hovering Aniki, then down at Naruto standing on the water. You have spirit, Madara conceded. But spirit does not stop a god. He clasped his hands together. 3 hand seals. Ram. Snake. Tiger. The atmosphere changed. The air grew heavy, static, and hard to breathe. The light of the sun dimmed, casting the battlefield into a sudden, eerie twilight. What is this? Temari whispered, looking up. Naruto looked up. And his blood ran cold. It wasn't a cloud. It wasn't a jutsu. It was a rock. A meteor, the size of a city, was descending from the heavens. It blotted out the sky, a falling moon destined to crush everything, the alliance, the ocean, and the island of Uzushio. Heavenly obstacle quaking star, Madara whispered. Panic broke the alliance lines. Shinobi dropped their weapons. Some screamed. Others just fell to their knees. It was an extinction event. He's going to kill us all, a Kumo ninja stammered. Even his own ally. Toby, phased into the ground nearby, looked up at the rock. Madara. Always with the theatrics. No, Naruto said. The word was quiet, but it cut through the panic. He looked at the meteor. He looked at the island behind him, his mother, his clan's future. No. Naruto launched himself into the sky. Brat. What are you doing? Anaki yelled. I'm stopping it, Naruto roared. You can't stop a mountain. Watch me. Naruto flew upward, his golden cloak blazing. But he wasn't alone. A cloud of sand surged past him. Gaara. I will lighten the load, the Kazekage stated, his sand forming a massive platform beneath the meteor. And I will stop it, Anaki shouted. The old Tsuchikage flew past them both, placing his hands directly onto the bottom of the burning rock. Earth-style, ultra-lightweight rock jutsu. Anaki strained, his muscles bulging, blood vessels popping in his eyes. The meteor slowed. It groaned. The heat was unbearable. Naruto arrived a second later. He didn't push with his hands. He pushed with chakra. 4 massive Kurama arms erupted from his back, bracing against the rock surface. Heave! Naruto screamed. The 3 of them, the Jinchuriki, the future Kazekage, and the Tsuchikage, pushed against the sky. The meteor stopped. It hovered, groaning, a few hundred feet above the alliance. A cheer went up from below. A roar of impossible hope. They had stopped the apocalypse. Anaki panted, his face purple. We did it. High below them, Madara looked up. A cruel, disappointed smile touched his lips. Impressive, Madara admitted. For mortals. He tilted his head. But what will you do about the second one? The clouds above the first meteor parted. A second rock, even larger than the first, crashed down onto the one they were holding. Crack! The sound was the earth screaming. The first meteor shattered under the impact. Anaki was crushed instantly, sent plummeting toward the earth. Gaara's sand shield disintegrated. Naruto looked up, watching the second death descend. He was out of position. He was out of leverage. Mom! Naruto screamed, his voice amplified by the Baijuu chakra, echoing across the ocean. Barrier. On the island of Uzushio, Kushina Uzumaki stood on the roof of the newly built ceiling tower. She saw the sky falling. She didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She was an Uzumaki. She bit her thumb, slamming both hands onto the central control seal of the island's defense grid. Don't underestimate us, Madara. She shrieked. Uzumaki art, adamantine dome, max output. The golden barrier covering the island didn't just hold, it expanded. Like a rapidly inflating bubble, the golden light shot outwards, rushing over the ocean, over the beaches, and expanding over the heads of the terrified Alliance army. It was a race between the meteor and the light. The meteor crashed down. The barrier snapped into place. Boom! The impact was deafening. The world turned white. The meteor slammed into the golden dome. The energy shield buckled, depressed inward, groaning under the billions of tons of rock. Inside the ceiling tower, blood poured from Kushina's nose. Her bones creaked. She was holding up the sky with her bare soul. I will not break, she roared, pouring every ounce of her life force into the seal. The dome held. The meteor shattered against the barrier, massive chunks of rock sliding harmlessly off the golden curve, crashing into the ocean and the surrounding landscape, but the army was safe. Madara's eyes widened slightly. An Uzumaki barrier of that magnitude, Madara murmured. She survived the extraction of the 9 tails? That bloodline is a plague. The dust settled. The barrier faded, its job done. Kushina collapsed on the tower roof, breathing shallowly, alive but spent. On the battlefield, Naruto pulled himself out of the ocean. He was wet, bruised, and furious. He looked around. Anaki lay in the sand, barely breathing. Gaara was unconscious. But the army was alive. Naruto looked up at the cliff where Madara stood. Is that it? Naruto yelled, his voice raw. Is that all you've got? Madara looked down. The amusement was gone from his face. Now, there was only irritation. You are persistent vermin, Madara said. I am done playing. He looked over at Toby, who was currently engaged in a high-speed taijutsu battle with Kakashi. Obito, Madara commanded. Summon the 10 tails. Now. Toby kicked Kakashi away and phased through a lightning cutter. We don't have the 8 or the 9, Toby shouted back. We have a tentacle from the 8, Madara said, glancing at the severed limb of the Hachibi lying on the beach. And we have the gold and silver brothers sealed in the gourd you possess. They have the 9 tails chakra. Toby paused. It will be imperfect. It will be enough to wipe them out, Madara stated. Toby jumped back, landing atop the Geto Mazo, which had dragged itself out of the water. He threw a heavy sealing pod into the statue's mouth. The statue chewed and swallowed. Then, the Geto Mazo screamed. It wasn't a sound of pain. It was the sound of evolution. The statue began to crack. Red light poured from the fissures. The sky turned a sickly shade of purple. The chakra pressure that hit the battlefield wasn't just heavy, it was toxic. Men fell to their knees, vomiting. What? What is that? Sasuke asked, landing beside Naruto. His Susanoo had faded, his eyes bleeding. Naruto stared at the transforming statue. He felt Kurama recoil in his gut. It's the Kyūbi, Kurama growled, his voice laced with genuine fear. The 10 tails. It's the end of the world, brat. We have to stop it before it transforms, Naruto shouted. Agreed, a voice said from the right. Itachi Uchiha stepped forward. Beside him stood Fugaku Uchiha. And behind them, the entire Uchiha clan contingent of the Konoha police force. Father? Sasuke looked at Fugaku. Fugaku's armor was cracked, his face bloodied, but his Mangekyo was spinning. This creates an opening, Fugaku said, his voice the steady calm of a seasoned commander. While the statue transforms, Madara is vulnerable. He is arrogant. He believes the battle is over. Fugaku looked at his 2 sons. Then he looked at Naruto. Naruto namikaze, Fugaku said. You have the speed. I do, Naruto nodded. Sasuke, Fugaku turned to his youngest. You have the eyes. I do. Itachi, Fugaku looked at his eldest. You have the mind. Itachi nodded. And I, Fugaku said, drawing his blade, have the clan. He raised his sword. Uchiha clan, Fugaku roared. Form up. 50 Uchiha with active Sharingan stepped forward, forming a phalanx behind their leader. We will suppress Madara, Fugaku commanded. We will create the opening. Naruto, Sasuke, Itachi, you strike the statue. Kill it before it wakes. Understood. The 3 prodigies shouted in unison. Charge. The Uchiha clan charged. It was a sight that would be written into history. A wave of fire in Genjutsu. Fire style, great fire annihilation. 50 voices roared. A tsunami of fire, dwarfing even Madara's earlier attack, swept toward the cliff. Madara sneered. Fire against me? Foolish. He held out his hand to absorb it. But hidden within the fire were shuriken. And hidden within the shuriken were wires. Lightning style, dragon flame jutsu, Fugaku shouted. He channeled lightning down the wires. It wasn't meant to hurt Madara. It was meant to bind him. Madara flinched as the lightning paralyzed his Pretapath for a microsecond. Now! Fugaku screamed. Itachi moved first. He cast Tsukuyomi. Not on Madara, Madara would resist it. He cast it on the ground beneath Madara's feet, distorting the perception of the terrain. Madara stumbled. A single, fatal step of miscalculation. Sasuke moved second. Amaterasu. Black flames engulfed Madara's right side. He couldn't absorb them fast enough because of the lightning paralysis. And Naruto moved last. He didn't attack Madara. He bypassed him completely. He was a golden streak, moving so fast he tore the air apart. He aimed straight for the Geto Mazo's single, opening eye. Rasen Shuriken. He hurled the spinning blade of wind. Toby, standing on the statue's head, panicked. Kamui. He tried to warp the attack away. But another kunai flew past Toby's ear. Flying Raijin? Naruto disappeared. He reappeared instantly at the kunai, right next to Toby. I'm not my dad, Naruto whispered, his face inches from Toby's mask. But I learned his tricks. He slammed a regular Rasengan into Toby's mask. Crack! The mask shattered. Obito Uchiha tumbled backward, falling off the statue. The Rasen Shuriken continued its path. It slammed into the Geto Mazo's eye. The explosion was blinding. The statue shrieked, a sound that shattered glass for miles. But as the smoke cleared, the eye opened. It wasn't the Rinnegan. It wasn't the Sharingan. It was a red eye with concentric circles and tomoe. The 10 tails roared. It hadn't been stopped. It had just been woken up angry. A massive tail, made of raw wood and muscle, swiped across the battlefield. Naruto grabbed Obito by the collar as they both fell through the air. Who are you? Naruto yelled at the unmasked man. Obito looked at him. Half his face was crushed, scarred. The other half looked sad. I am no one, Obito whispered. I am just a man who wants to dream. He phased through Naruto's grip, falling into the chaos below. Madara burned the Amaterasu off his armor. He looked at the raging ten tails. Imperfect, Madara sighed. Unruly. But sufficient. He jumped, landing on the beast's head. He bit his thumb and slammed his hand onto the creature's hide, connecting himself to it. Now, Madara said, his voice amplified by the monster's chakra. Let us show them despair. The ten tails opened its mouth. It didn't form a sphere. It formed a cone. A beam. It fired. The beam didn't hit the army. It hit the ocean. The water vaporized. The shockwave hit the golden dome of Uzushio again. Inside the tower, Kushina screamed as the feedback tore through her chakra coils. The dome shattered. Mom! Naruto screamed, watching the golden light fade. The island was exposed. Madara pointed a finger. Next shot, Madara said. Disappears the Uzumaki. The ten tails began to charge again. Naruto landed on the beach. He was out of chakra. His sage mode was gone. Kurama was recharging. He stood between the monster and his home. Move, Naruto, Sasuke yelled, landing beside him. You can't block that. I'm not moving, Naruto said, his voice trembling but his feet planted. That's my home. That's my family. He looked at the charging beam. If I have to burn my soul to stop it, I will. He reached deep. Deeper than Kurama. Deeper than sage mode. He reached into the seal on his chest. The preservation jar. Don't do it, brat, Kurama warned. You don't know how to use those. I'm an Uzumaki, Naruto thought. I'll figure it out. He ripped the seal open. Two purple eyes floated in the fluid. The Rinnegan. Naruto grabbed one. Naruto, Sasuke shouted, realizing what he was doing. Naruto jammed the Rinnegan into his own left eye socket. Pain. White hot, blinding pain. It felt like his brain was being eaten by fire. His chakra network screamed as the alien power flooded his system. But with the pain came clarity. He saw the chakra. He saw the flow. He saw the gravity. The ten tails fired. Naruto held up his left hand. Shinra. Tensei. The blast hit an invisible wall. It didn't bounce back. It split. The beam bifurcated, carving two massive canyons into the ocean on either side of the island, missing Uzushio by inches. Naruto fell to his knees, blood pouring from his left eye. Madara stared. For the first time, he looked genuinely shocked. He implanted it? Madara whispered. In the middle of battle? And he controlled it instantly? Madara began to laugh. A manic, wild sound. Uzumaki, Madara roared. You are a worthy dance partner. Naruto panted, clutching his eye. The world was spinning. But he was alive. And Uzushio was safe. I'm not done yet, Naruto whispered, standing up. One blue eye. One purple eye. I'm just getting started. Chapter 11. The world was screaming. That was the only way Naruto could describe the sensation. It wasn't sound, it was a white-hot, serrated spike of sensory overload jamming itself directly into his brain through his left optic nerve. The Rinnegan wasn't just an eye, it was a hungry, alien star that had suddenly taken up residence in his skull, demanding fuel. Arg! Naruto gritted his teeth, a guttural growl tearing from his throat as he clutched the side of his face. Blood leaked between his fingers, thick and dark. The chakra drain was instantaneous and catastrophic, like a whirlpool opening up inside his coils, sucking everything dry. You suicidal idiot. Kurama's voice roared in his mind, not with anger, but with a frantic, terrifying urgency. That eye isn't yours. It is the eye of a god. It is eating your life force just to stay open. Even with my chakra and your Uzumaki blood, you have 5 minutes before it burns your brain to ash. Then give me 5 minutes, Naruto projected back, his thought a jagged mental shout. Just keep feeding it. Across the shattered coastline, Madara Uchiha watched, his arms crossed over his chest, his expression one of rapt, maniacal fascination. The dust from the bifurcated ten tails beam was still settling, painting the world in shades of gray and ruin. Do you feel it, boy? Madara called out, his voice cutting through the wind. The weight of evolution? That eye demands a price. Can you pay it? Naruto dropped his hand. His left eye, the purple ripple pattern glowing with a terrifying intensity, locked onto the Uchiha legend. The world looked different through it. He didn't just see chakra, he saw the structure of reality. He saw the gravity welling around Madara, the massive, chaotic storm that was the ten tails, and the fragile, flickering lifelines of the Alliance soldiers behind him. I can pay, Naruto snarled. He stepped forward, the ground cracking under his foot. I'm rich. He flickered. It wasn't the yellow flash of his father, or the body flicker of Shisui. It was instantaneous. The Rinnegan manipulated the resistance of the air in front of him, creating a vacuum. He didn't run, he was pulled forward by physics itself. He appeared directly in front of Madara, his right fist wreathed in golden Kurama chakra, his left hand extended. Shinra Tensei. The point-blank repulse slammed into Madara just as Naruto's punch connected. The combined force of physical impact and gravitational rejection created a shockwave that buckled the tectonic plate. Madara's eyes widened. He brought his gun by fan up to block, but the force was too great. The legend was blasted backward, skipping across the ocean surface like a stone, crashing through 3 successive waves before regaining his footing. Magnificent, Madara roared, laughing as he stood up on the water, wiping a streak of blood from his lip. You use the eye crudely, like a hammer. But what a heavy hammer it is. He clapped his hands. Wood style, deep forest bloom. The ocean floor erupted. Massive, twisting vines the size of skyscrapers burst from the water, flowering instantly to release toxic yellow pollen. The vines lashed out at Naruto, seeking to crush him and poison him simultaneously. Naruto hung in the air, the Rinnegan pulsing with agony. He saw the pollen. He saw the vines. Banshu Tenon. He didn't pull Madara. He pulled the air. He created a singularity point right in the center of the pollen cloud, sucking the toxic spores into a tight, compressed ball of yellow dust. Then, he raised his right hand. Wind nature chakra screamed into existence. Rasen Shuriken. He hurled the spinning blade of wind into the compressed pollen ball. The resulting explosion didn't just scatter the pollen, the wind blade sliced the microscopic spores into inert dust, while the blast wave shattered the encroaching wood vines into splinters. From the beach, the Alliance watched in stunned silence. The regular shinobi, the samurai, even the cage were merely spectators now. Sasuke Uchiha stood next to his father, Fugaku. His 3 Tomoe Sharingan spun wildly, trying to track the movements, but his body remained rooted to the spot. His knuckles were white as he gripped his sword hilt. There was no jealousy in his heart today, only a cold, hollow realization of the sheer scale of the power gap. He was an elite of the leaf, a prodigy. But Naruto? Naruto was fighting a god. He's holding him back, Sasuke whispered, the wind tearing at his hair. He's actually doing it. He is doing more than that, Itachi said, appearing beside them, his Anbu mask gone. He is overwhelming him. But the cost? Look at his chakra network. It is burning. On the beach, the 10 tails groaned. Its single, Tomoe ringed eye swiveled, ignoring the ants on the beach and focusing on the golden barrier of the island that had denied it. It opened its mouth, beginning to charge another beam. It's going to fire again, Daru yelled. Take cover. Cover won't help, Gaara shouted, raising a sand shield that looked pitifully small against the gathering energy. Naruto, locked in combat with Madara over the ocean, felt the buildup of chakra. He looked back. The 10 tails was preparing to wipe Uzushio off the map. I can't be in 2 places at once. Naruto panicked. You don't have to be, Kurama growled. Use the clones. You have the nature energy you gathered on the island. Use it. Pin that monster down so hard it can't even twitch. Naruto's eyes narrowed. He kicked Madara away with a burst of gravity and clasped his hands together. Shadow clone jutsu. 4 clones erupted from him. But they didn't charge Madara. They scattered, flying toward the 10 tails at breakneck speed. They took up positions at the 4 cardinal points around the colossal beast. The clones didn't just flare with Kurama's chakra. The orange pigmentation of sage mode appeared around their eyes. They were drawing in the natural energy of the ocean and the earth, mixing it with the Baijuu power. Ready! The clones shouted in unison. Golden chains, thicker and brighter than ever before, erupted from the backs of the 4 clones. They slammed into the earth, linking together to form a massive, glowing square perimeter around the 10 tails. Uzumaki's secret art, sage tech, celestial gravity barrier. The air inside the square shimmered and collapsed. The 10 tails shrieked. It wasn't just chains holding it down. The gravity within the barrier magnified 100-fold, amplified by nature energy. The beast's massive head was slammed into the dirt with a sound like a falling mountain. Its legs buckled, bones cracking under its own immense weight. The charging tailed beast bomb dissolved in its mouth, the energy choking it, dissipating harmlessly into the ground. The beast was flattened, pinned to the earth like a specimen on a board. He pinned the 10 tails, Aniki breathed, watching from the shore, his old eyes wide. By himself. Madara looked at the beast, then back at Naruto. His amusement vanished. You sealed the Kyūbi's movements? Madara said, his voice cold. You are becoming a nuisance, Uzumaki. I'm just getting started, Naruto roared. But as he prepared to charge Madara again, space warped behind him. Obito materialized. The mask was gone, shattered in the earlier skirmish, revealing the scarred face of the man who had orchestrated everything. He held a black chakra receiver, aiming for Naruto's kidney. You are wide open, Obito whispered. Naruto didn't turn. His sensory abilities, enhanced by Sage Mode and the Rinnegan, saw 360 degrees. He felt the distortion in space before Obito even fully materialized. He shifted his weight. Obito's rod passed through his cloak, missing his flesh by a millimeter. Naruto's hand shot back, grabbing Obito's wrist. I was waiting for you, Naruto hissed. Obito's eye widened. He tried to phase, to slip into Kamui. But Naruto's grip burned. Fuinjutsu script crawled from Naruto's hand onto Obito's skin, glowing angry red. Uzumaki style, anchor seal. Obito tried to warp, but the space around him shuddered and refused to bend. He was locked in reality. The seal disrupted his connection to his own dimension. You, Obito gasped. You killed my parents, Naruto said, his voice void of any mercy. He spun around, facing the man who had haunted his life since the day he was born. You manipulated Nagato. You destroyed Kumo. You started this war. Naruto's right hand formed a Rasengan. But this wasn't a normal sphere. It was dark, heavy, infused with the magnetic pull of the Rinnegan and the rage of the Nine Tails. And now, you're done. Obito tried to kick him away, but Naruto was an immovable object. Madara. Obito screamed, reaching out. Madara watched. He made no move to help. He simply floated there, observing. Naruto slammed the Rasengan into Obito's chest. Planetary Rasengan. The impact was absolute. The sphere ground into Obito's chest, shattering his ribs, his lungs, and his heart. The rotational force twisted his body, while the gravity core inside the Rasengan imploded. Obito Uchiha was blasted out of the sky. He crashed into the ocean surface, skipped once, and sank beneath the waves. The chakra signature flickered, faded, and then vanished. Silence fell over the battlefield. Naruto stood panting, his left eye bleeding freely now. He turned his gaze back to Madara. Madara hadn't moved. He floated there, looking at the spot where Obito had fallen with mild disinterest. Ruthless, Madara commented. You killed him without hesitation. He was a threat, Naruto said, wiping the blood from his cheek. And now he's gone. Naruto floated closer, his golden cloak blazing, the pain in his eye screaming, but his resolve harder than diamond. And that means you're done, Madara. Madara raised an eyebrow. Done? I am an immortal reanimation with infinite chakra. You are a mortal boy burning his life force to keep a stolen eye open. Yeah, Naruto said. But you have a problem. Naruto pointed at the sinking spot in the ocean. Obito is dead. Black Zetsu is sealed. He pointed at the pinned, wailing 10 tails. The beast is locked down. He looked Madara dead in the eye. You're an Edo Tensei, Madara. A dead man walking. You can't become the Jinchuriki of the 10 tails with a dead body. You need a living vessel. Madara's expression tightened. You needed Obito to use the Rin rebirth on you, Naruto continued, his voice gaining strength. You needed him to bring you back to life so you could seal the beast inside yourself. That was the plan, wasn't it? Naruto smirked, a fierce, triumphant expression. Well, your ride just died. You're stuck as a ghost. You can't win. You can't become the sage. You're just a dusty old relic with no way out. Madara stared at him. For the first time since his resurrection, the legendary Uchiha looked cornered. He looked at the pinned 10 tails. He looked at the ocean where Obito had vanished. The boy was right. Without a living body, he could not seal the Kyūbi. His grand plan had just been checkmated by a 16-year-old. Madara started, his voice low, dangerous. I could force you to use the jutsu. Try it, Naruto challenged. My mom is the best seal mistress in history. She'll lock my chakra down before you can make me weave a single sign. Or I'll just kill myself. Either way, you lose. Madara Susanoo flared, a manifestation of his frustration. The blue chakra towered into the sky, drawing its sword. Then I will simply destroy this world out of spite, Madara roared, his composure cracking. If I cannot have the dream, no one will. He raised his colossal sword to strike the ocean, to cause a tsunami that would wipe out the alliance and the island behind him. Clang! A golden chain shot out of the water, wrapping around Madara's neck. Another chain wrapped around his sword arm. A third around his waist. You talk too much for a dead man. Kushina Uzumaki erupted from the waves below, soaking wet, her hair a halo of furious red. She had swum from the island, pushing through the pain, through the exhaustion, to be there. She stood on the water's surface, her hands controlling the adamantine chains that now bound the ghost of the Uchiha. "Mom," Naruto yelled. "I told you," Kushina shouted, her violet eyes blazing as she yanked the chains tight, dragging the Susanoo down. "We're holding him. Do it, Naruto." Madara struggled, his Susanoo flickering as the sealing chakra in the chains disrupted his connection to the technique. Uzumaki chains. Troublesome bloodline. Naruto didn't waste the opening. He gathered every last drop of chakra he had left. Kurama poured everything into the mold. A massive, golden avatar of Kurama formed around Naruto. In its hand, a sealing tag the size of a building appeared. It wasn't just a tag, it was a masterpiece of Fuinjutsu, written by Jiraiya, refined by Kushina, and powered by Naruto. "This is for my dad," Naruto roared. "And for everyone you hurt." The Kurama avatar slammed the sealing tag onto Madara's chest. Seal. The characters on the tag spread instantly, covering Madara's reanimated body like living ivy. The cracks in his skin began to glow white. His movements froze. The Susanoo shattered into glass-like shards. Madara looked at the tag. He looked at Kushina holding him with the strength of a mother protecting her cub. He looked at Naruto, the boy who had beaten him at his own game. He let out a long, weary sigh. To be defeated by the brats of this era, Madara murmured. The anger faded from his eyes, leaving only the tiredness of a man who had lived, and died, too long. Perhaps Hashirama was right after all. The dream was just a dream. The light consumed him. The Edo Tensei crumbled. Madara Uchiha dissolved into ash and dust, his soul released from the impure world, leaving only the sacrifice body falling into the ocean. The chains went slack. But Naruto didn't stop. He turned his attention to the beach, where the 10 Tails was still pinned, thrashing against the gravity barrier. "It's not over," Naruto rasped, his golden cloak flickering. The Rinnegan was pulsing violently, threatening to shut down. "Kurama, I need everything you have left. We have to end this." "Do it, brat," the fox growled, pouring the last dregs of his power into Naruto. Naruto floated above the pinned 10 Tails. He extended his hands. By Juu extraction. Chakra chains shot from his stomach, diving into the 10 Tails flesh. He wasn't sealing it, he was unraveling it. He pulled. 4 massive shapes were ripped from the 10 Tails body. The 4 tails, 5 tails, 6 tails, and 7 tails. Freed from the husk, they materialized on the beach, confused and exhausted, but free. The 10 Tails shrieked, reduced to a mindless, empty husk of wood and energy. "And now? You stay here," Naruto whispered. He clasped his hands together one final time. The Rinnegan flared with a blinding purple light. Chibaku Tensei. A black sphere formed between his hands. He hurled it into the sky above the 10 Tails. The earth trembled. The rocks, the debris, the very ground beneath the beast began to rise. The 10 Tails husk was dragged upward, shrieking as it was encased in layer upon layer of stone. It grew. And grew. It rose higher into the atmosphere, a massive, growing sphere of rock that eclipsed the sun. Naruto didn't stop until it was done. A new moon hung in the sky, a permanent monument to the battle, a prison for the empty shell of the beast that had threatened the world. "It's done," Naruto whispered. His chakra hit 0. The golden cloak vanished. The Rinnegan went dark. His vision turned black, and his body went limp, falling from the sky. "Naruto." The alliance cheered, a roar of victory that shook the earth. But Kushina didn't cheer. She moved. She caught him mid-air, landing softly on the water. He was unconscious, blood streaming from his left eye socket. "Don't you dare die on me," she hissed, her hands glowing with medical chakra. She placed her palm over his left eye. Fuinjutsu, chakra severance seal. She slammed the seal home. A complex pattern spread across Naruto's face, cutting off the chakra flow to the Rinnegan, isolating the eye from his network before it could drain the last spark of his life. Naruto gasped, his body relaxing as the parasitic drain stopped. His breathing steadied. Kushina slumped, holding him close, rocking him gently as the waves lapped around them. She looked up at the new moon in the sky, then down at her son's sleeping face. "You crazy, reckless, wonderful idiot," she whispered, tears falling onto his cheek. "You actually did it. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, Uzushiogakur. The first thing Naruto noticed was the quiet. It wasn't the silence of the void or the muffled roar of battle. It was a real, peaceful quiet, broken only by the distant, rhythmic crashing of waves against stone. He didn't open his eyes immediately. Instead, he reached out with his senses. The world painted itself in his mind, vibrant and detailed, far sharper than sight alone. He felt the grain of the dark wood ceiling above him. He smelled the salt air and miso soup? He tried to sit up, but his body felt like it had been filled with lead. A dull throb pulsed behind his left eye socket, a void where the burning star had been. He reached up to touch the bandages covering his face, but his hand was gently intercepted before he even made contact. He had felt the movement coming a second before it happened. Easy, Sochi. Don't touch the seal. Naruto turned his head, though his eyes remained closed behind the bandages wrapping his forehead and left eye. He could feel her presence like a warm sun, Kushina, sitting by his bedside. Her chakra felt tired but radiant. Mom? Naruto croaked. Where? Home, she smiled, squeezing his hand. Uzushio. You've been out for 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Naruto blinked his right eye open, the light stinging slightly. It felt clumsy compared to the clarity of his sensory perception. The war. Madara. The moon? It's over, Kushina assured him. Madara is gone. Obito is dead. And there's a new moon in the sky that everyone is calling Naruto's rock, she chuckled softly. A bit literal, but it stuck. And the others? Safe. The alliance is disbanding, but the treaties hold. Everyone went home to rebuild. The door to the room slid open. Naruto felt 2 familiar signatures enter before the door even moved. Paper and Rain. Konan, looking serene in casual clothes, carried a tray with steaming bowls. Beside her walked a man with a chakra signature that felt like family, strong, vibrant, and whole. Nagato. You're awake, Nagato said, a small, genuine smile touching his lips. About time. Nagato. Naruto stared with his one good eye, but mostly felt the strength in the man's stance. You look good. Thanks to your mother, Nagato said, glancing at Kushina with deep respect. And to you. He walked over to the bed, looking down at Naruto with his empty sockets covered by a simple white cloth. I hear those eyes were put to good use. Naruto flinched slightly, his hand going back to his left eye. I had 2. I know, Nagato said softly. You did what I couldn't. You used them to protect, not to destroy. We've sealed it off for now, Kushina explained, tracing the edge of the bandage covering Naruto's left eye. It's dormant. It won't drain you anymore. But we'll need to figure out a long-term solution. Until then. You're a bit of a pirate, you know? Naruto grinned weakly. A pirate ninja? Sounds cool. Here, Konan said, setting the tray down on his lap. Eat. You need the strength. Naruto sensed the miso soup before he saw it. It smelled amazing. He took a sip, the warmth spreading through his chest. It's good to be home, he whispered. It is, Kushina agreed, looking out the window at the rising sun over the rebuilt village. It really is. 1 week later, the free beasts. Naruto stood on the northern cliffs of Uzushio, looking out at the sea. His bandages were gone, replaced by a simple eye patch over his left eye. He felt stronger, his chakra network almost fully recovered. But he wasn't alone. Sitting on the rocks, massive and imposing even in their relaxed states, were 4 colossal figures. Son Goku the 4 tails, Kokuo the 5 tails, Seiken the 6 tails, and Chome the 7 tails. They were free, their Jinchuriki released to the afterlife, their chakra no longer bound to the Geto Mazo. You called us, human, Son Goku rumbled, his lava-like fur cooling in the sea breeze. Why? I wanted to talk, Naruto said, sitting down on a rock, completely at ease in their presence. About what comes next? Next? Kokuo asked, her voice gentle but wary. Usually, this is the part where humans try to seal us again. To make us weapons. Not anymore, Naruto said firmly. The war is over. The Akatsuki is gone. And I'm not going to let anyone hunt you down again. He looked at them, meeting each of their giant gazes. You're free, Naruto stated. Truly free. You can go wherever you want. Back to your homes, or find new ones. But I wanted to offer you a sanctuary. He gestured to the island behind him. Uzushio is protected by the strongest barriers in the world. No one gets in unless we let them. If you ever need a place to rest, to be safe, you're welcome here. As guests. Not prisoners. Seiken bubbled thoughtfully. A home. Without walls? A home with friends, Naruto corrected. Kurama is here. B and Gyuki visit. Matatabi and Yugito too. It's a bit noisy, but it's safe. Chome fluttered her wings, a happy buzzing sound. Lucky 7 likes the sound of that. A safe nest. We will consider it, Son Goku said, a grudging respect in his voice. You are different, Naruto Namikaze. You kept your word. I always do, Naruto grinned. Just try not to accidentally step on any buildings if you visit, okay? The Baiju laughed, a sound that shook the cliffs, before dispersing into spirit forms to explore their newfound freedom. 1 month later, Konohagakure. 1 month later, Naruto stood in the Hokage's office in Konoha. The village was bustling, repairs from the war effort well underway. The mood in the streets was lighter than it had been in years. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat behind his desk, looking older but strangely unburdened. He smoked his pipe, listening as Naruto and Kushina laid out their plans. So, Hiruzen said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. You intend to make the move permanent. Uzushio is ready, Kushina said firmly. The infrastructure is there. The barrier is secure. We have Nagato and Konan helping with the administration. It's time to officially open the doors. We're not leaving Konoha behind, Gigi, Naruto added quickly. I'm still a leaf ninja. I'll always be a leaf ninja. But Uzushio is my clan's legacy. We want to make it a place where people can start over. A neutral ground. Like the bridge in Wave, but bigger. Hiruzen smiled, a warm, proud expression. I never doubted your loyalty, Naruto. And I think it is a wonderful idea. The world needs bridges right now. If Uzushio can be that bridge, then Konoha will support it fully. He stamped a document on his desk. Consider your dual residency approved. And extend my regards to the guests you are sheltering. Kushina grinned. Will do, old man. After leaving the tower, Naruto made his way to the Uchiha compound. The atmosphere here had changed too. The tension that used to hang over the district was gone, replaced by a quiet, dignified peace. He found them in the main house's garden. Ideally, Fugaku and Mikoto were drinking tea, while Itachi and Sasuke were engaged in a light spar. Naruto-kun. Mikoto called out, waving him over. Join us. Naruto sat down, accepting a cup of tea. Hey, everyone. Just stopped by to say goodbye for a bit. Mom and I are heading back to Uzu tomorrow. Back to your island fortress, Fugaku noted, though his tone was respectful. It sounds impressive. It is, Naruto beamed. Actually, that's part of why I'm here. We're opening it up. Not just for Uzumaki, but for allies. Friends. He looked at them. If you guys ever want a vacation. Or a change of scenery. There's always a place for you in Uzushio. No politics, no council meetings. Just peace. Itachi stopped sparring, walking over to wipe sweat from his brow. A tempting offer, he said with a small smile. Perhaps one day. Sasuke sheathed his sword, sitting next to his brother. He looked different, calmer, settled. I might take you up on that, Sasuke said. Eventually. Naruto grinned. Doors always open. He hesitated, then looked at the 3 Uchiha men. Hey. There's one thing I've been meaning to ask. Since the war. Go on, Fugaku said. Sasuke's eyes, Naruto pointed at his friend. During the fight with the 10 tails. I saw the pattern change. He had the Mangekyo. But how? You guys are all, alive. The garden went silent. Fugaku, Itachi, and Sasuke exchanged a long, complicated look. Finally, Fugaku sighed, setting his cup down. It is a fair question. Itachi had awakened the Mangekyo years ago, Fugaku explained quietly. The burden of his role in Anbu. The things he saw. It triggered the evolution early. But the power comes with a cost. He was going blind. Naruto's eyes widened. He looked at Itachi. The stone tablet in the Naka shrine, Sasuke continued, picking up the thread. It told us that the only way to restore the light lost to the Mangekyo is to transplant the eyes of a close blood relative. A brother. So, you swapped? Naruto asked. We did, Itachi said. It was a gamble. We didn't know if it would work in reverse. I gave Sasuke my eyes, and he gave me his. Since Itachi's eyes were already evolved, Fugaku said, a hint of awe in his voice, when Sasuke received them, his chakra reacted to the dormant power. And since Itachi, a Mangekyo user, received a pair of mature, 3 Tomoe Sharingan. His own spiritual energy forced them to evolve instantly to match his previous power. Wait, Naruto blinked. So you both? Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke said, activating his eyes. The complex, geometric pattern spun in crimson. We both have it. No blindness. No deterioration. We didn't expect it to work so perfectly, Itachi admitted, activating his own matching eyes. We thought perhaps one of us would lose the light. But it seems fate was kind. Honestly, Sasuke smirked, deactivating his eyes. Thinking about it now. It wasn't a bad trade. Naruto stared at them, then burst out laughing. That is so. Uchiha. You guys are ridiculous. Hey bro, let's swap eyes. Sure thing. The Uchiha laughed with him, the sound echoing in the peaceful garden. Before leaving, the Sannin. On his way out of the village, Naruto made one last stop. He found her at a small dengo shop, looking bored as she nursed a cup of sake. Shizune was trying to wrestle a piglet nearby. Tsunade Bakken. Tsunade looked up, her eyes narrowing. Don't call me that, brat. I'm not that old. Naruto grinned, sliding into the seat opposite her. I have a proposition for you. I'm not lending you money, she said instantly. No money, Naruto laughed. A home. Tsunade paused, her cup halfway to her mouth. What? Uzushio, Naruto said. It's rebuilt. It's safe. And it's family. You're my dad's teacher's teammate, but you're also Mito-sama's granddaughter. You're an Uzumaki too, kinda. You have the blood. He looked at her seriously. I know you never really came back to Konoha. Not fully. Too many ghosts here. But Uzu. It's new. It's a fresh start. We have a hospital that needs a director. We'll have a lot of stubborn redheads in the future. Who will need someone to keep them in line. Tsunade stared at him. She saw the hope in his eyes, the same hope she had seen in Nawaki and Dan. But this time, the boy had won. He had survived. A hospital, huh? She mused. And I suppose you expect me to work for free? We pay in gambling debts, Naruto deadpanned. Which, knowing you, means you'll be working for free anyway. Tsunade barked a laugh, a loud, genuine sound. You cheeky brat. She downed her sake. Fine. I'll come take a look. But if the sake is bad, I'm leaving. Deal, Naruto grinned. 3 months later, Kumagakure. 3 months later, the high peaks of Kumagakure were shrouded in their usual thick, white clouds. But unlike before, the sounds echoing through the mountains weren't just thunder, they were the sounds of construction, of hammers and saws, and the boisterous laughter of a village reborn. Naruto walked through the main gates, his breath misting in the cold air. He wasn't disguised this time. He wore his Uzushio flak jacket, the spiral crest proudly displayed. Yo! Look who it is. A blur of movement, and suddenly Killer Bee was there, striking a pose on top of a newly built archway. The hero returns, the golden flash. Ready to make a splash, no time to dash. B. Naruto grinned, leaping up to fist bump the Jinchuriki. Still rhyming, huh? Never stop the flow, you know. The beat goes on, from high to low. B laughed. Come on. Bro is waiting. They made their way to the Raikage's office, a temporary structure, but solid and imposing, just like its occupant. A looked up as they entered. He looked tired, buried under paperwork, but his eyes were sharp. When he saw Naruto, he stood up, a rare, genuine smile breaking through his stern facade. Naruto, A boomed, walking around the desk to clasp Naruto's forearm in a warrior's greeting. You finally decided to visit. Couldn't stay away, old man, Naruto grinned. Had to see if you'd fixed your mustache yet. A barked a laugh. Watch your tongue, brat. I can still put you through the grinder. I'd like to see you try, Naruto challenged playfully. We missed you, a cool voice said from the doorway. Samui stood there, looking as composed as ever, but her eyes were warm. Beside her was Yugito Ni, who was leaning against the frame with a smirk. Samui. Yugito. Naruto greeted them. The village is recovering, Yugito said, walking over. Thanks to the aid from Uzushio. Those barrier scrolls and construction resources you sent? They saved us months of work. That was Mom's idea, Naruto admitted. She said, if we're going to be allies, we might as well be useful. She is a wise woman, A nodded. Terrifying, but wise. Speaking of which, Naruto said, pulling a scroll from his vest. Official invitation. Uzushio is holding a. Well, Mom's calling it a grand reopening festival. But really, it's just a giant party. We want Kumo there. All of you. He looked at Samui and Yugito. Especially you guys. It wouldn't be a party without my favorite sparring partners. Yugito raised an eyebrow. Favorite? I thought you preferred fighting Sasuke. Sasuke is too broody, Naruto laughed. You guys are actually fun. We would be honored, Samui said, taking the scroll. Kumagakure will attend. A party in the swirl? I'm gonna hurl. Some rhymes at every girl. Be cheered. The rest of the day was spent wandering the rebuilding village. Naruto saw the faces of the people he had saved, families reunited, children playing in the streets. They waved at him, calling out his name with reverence and joy. It wasn't the heavy, fearful respect they used to have for Jinchuriki. It was genuine love. That evening, they sat on a high cliff overlooking the clouds. You did good, Naruto, Yugito said quietly, sitting beside him. You changed things. Not just the war. But us. The way people see us. Naruto looked at the stars. We changed it together, he said. It's a new world, Yugito. No more hiding. No more hiding, she agreed, leaning her head against his shoulder. A couple of years later, Uzushio-gakure. The sun hung high over the land of whirlpools, illuminating a miracle. What had once been a desolate ruin was now a thriving, vibrant metropolis. White stone buildings with red-tiled roofs spiraled up the island's central peak, connected by elegant bridges and bustling marketplaces. The air was filled with the sounds of life, merchants shouting, seagulls crying, and children laughing. Naruto stood on the highest balcony of the Uzukage Tower, looking out over his home. He was 20 years old now, his features sharper, his frame filled out with the strength of a man in his prime. He wore the white haori of a leader, the red spiral emblazoned on the back. The village below was a tapestry of nations. He saw Kumo shinobi training alongside Konoha ninjas in the academy courtyard. He saw merchants from Wave selling their wares to tourists from Earth. It was the melting pot his mother had dreamed of. In the park below, he spotted a familiar scene. Itachi Uchiha was sitting on a bench, looking peaceful as he read a scroll. Next to him sat a woman with long brown hair, Izumi. She was laughing at something he said, her hand resting on his arm. They had moved here 2 years ago, seeking a life away from the shadows. Itachi had become the head of the academy's history department, a role he fit perfectly. Further down the street, chaos was unfolding. Tsunade was marching down the main thoroughfare, shouting something about a rigged lottery, while Shizune chased after her with Tauntaun. Walking beside them, laughing up a storm, was Jiraiya. The Toad Sage had finally settled down, mostly, taking a position as the village's special advisor, which mostly meant testing the local sake and writing his books. They're lively today. A soft thud announced the arrival of Kushina. She landed on the railing beside him, looking as ageless and fiery as ever. She wore the robes of the clan matriarch, but her smile was purely maternal. It's a good day, Naruto said, leaning on the railing. Peaceful. It is, Kushina agreed, looking over the village she had resurrected. We built something good here, Sochi. Your father. He would have loved this. Yeah, Naruto said, touching the kunai that hung at his belt, his father's kunai. He would have. They stood in silence for a moment, soaking in the view of the thriving village, the blue ocean, and the second moon that hung faintly in the daytime sky, a permanent reminder of their victory. Kushina nudged him with her elbow. So, she said, her tone shifting to that dangerous, teasing lilt he knew all too well. The village is built. The peace is kept. The paperwork is done. Naruto sighed, knowing what was coming. Mom. I'm just saying. Kushina threw her hands up. I built you a whole village. I fought a war. I even helped bring back the dead. Is it too much to ask for a daughter-in-law? Yugito visits every month. Samui sends you gifts. Even that nice Hyuga girl from Konoha stops by. When are you going to pick one, or two, or even all three and give me those grandbabies I asked for? Naruto groaned, hiding his face in his hands. We are not having this conversation on the balcony where everyone can hear us. Then get to work, Kushina laughed, poking his cheek. The Uzumaki clan isn't going to repopulate itself, you know. Naruto looked at his mother, at her bright, happy face. He looked at the village full of friends and allies. He felt Kurama sleeping contentedly in his gut. He laughed. A loud, free sound that carried over the rooftops of Uzushio. I'm working on it, Mom, he promised, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I'm working on it. The wind blew from the ocean, carrying the scent of salt and the sound of laughter, spinning the red spiral flags of the Uzumaki high above the world. The story was over. But the life. The life was just beginning. Alright guys, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Once again, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, and I'm extremely grateful for all the love and engagement you guys keep showing. Anyways y'all, have a wonderful day, and until next time, peace.